In this video, we're going to be breaking down 3 hours of Luffy's form theories. Let's get started with the video. Gear 6. Possibility. Will Luffy transcend Gear 5? Gear 6. Possibility. Will Luffy transcend Gear 5? Luffy's declaration on the rooftop. When Luffy unlocked Gear 5 during his battle with Kaido on Onigashima, he declared something important. Standing on the rooftop, his body transformed into a cartoonish white form with flame-shaped hair. Luffy said this was his peak. He claimed that Gear 5 represented the pinnacle of what he could do with his devil fruit powers. The episode adapting this moment in the anime was even titled Luffy's Peak Attained, Gear 5. For many fans, this statement seemed final. Luffy had awakened his devil fruit. He had reached the ultimate form. There would be no Gear, the egghead problem. But as One Piece entered its final saga, a different picture started to emerge. Luffy fought the 5 elders on Egghead Island. Despite using Gear 5, he couldn't permanently damage them. Every attack he landed simply regenerated. Saturn, Warkery, and the other elders recovered from his blows almost instantly. Luffy became so frustrated that he stopped fighting and started running instead. He told Dory and Brogy that it was useless because these enemies were immortal. This raised an uncomfortable question for fans. If Gear 5 couldn't defeat the 5 elders, how could it possibly defeat Imu, the secret ruler of the world government who sits above them? The remaining threats. The theory that Luffy might need Gear 6 started gaining serious traction in the community. Fans looked at the enemies still remaining in the story. Blackbeard, one of the 4 emperors, possesses 2 devil fruits and hasn't shown his awakening yet. Shanks, another emperor, demonstrated haki so powerful he could send it across miles to damage opponents without even being near them. The Holy Knights appeared as a new threat, and their leader, Figureland Garling, replaced Elder Saturn. Most terrifying of all stood Imu, whose powers remain almost completely mysterious, but clearly exceed anything Luffy has faced before. What Luffy actually said about his peak. Understanding why Gear 6 theories exist requires understanding what Luffy actually said about Gear 5. When he called it his peak, he was specifically talking about his devil fruit transformation. Gear 5 represents the awakened form of the Hito no Mi, model Nika. According to Kaido's explanation during their fight, devil fruit awakening happens when the user's mind and body finally catch up with the ability. There is nothing beyond awakening in terms of devil fruit powers. In that sense, Luffy has genuinely reached his peak with his devil fruit. He cannot go higher in terms of transformations from the fruit itself. The devil fruit versus haki distinction. But devil fruits are not the only source of power in One Piece. Haki exists as a separate system entirely. Luffy has mastered the basic and advanced forms of all 3 haki types. He can use observation haki to see the future, armament haki to damage enemies internally, and conqueror's haki to coat his attacks with overwhelming force. However, mastering these abilities doesn't mean he has maxed them out. The difference matters because it creates room for Luffy to grow stronger without contradicting his statement that Gear 5 is his peak. Joy Boy's haki changes everything. The clearest evidence came from Joy Boy's haki. During the escape from Egghead Island, the ancient robot Emmet released a massive burst of Conqueror's haki that Joy Boy had stored inside it 800 years ago. This haki blast accomplished something Luffy's Gear 5 attacks couldn't. It forcibly knocked all 5 elders out of their demonic transformations. It cancelled Saturn's summoning ability. It even reached Imu in Mary Geoise and caused them pain. The 5 elders, who had been immortal and regenerating from everything Luffy threw at them, were suddenly vulnerable. This single moment proved that a level of haki exists far beyond what Luffy currently possesses. Theory 1. Ultimate Haki as Gear 6. The Gear 6 theory splits into several major variations within the community. The first and most popular theory argues that Gear 6 won't exist as a Devil Fruit transformation, but Luffy will unlock something that functions like a Gear 6 through pure Haki mastery. Fans point to how Scopper Gaban, the former third strongest member of Roger's crew, recently appeared in the Elbaf arc. Gaban told Luffy to focus on how he uses his Conqueror's Haki. The implication was clear. Luffy needs to learn advanced techniques with his Haki that go beyond what he currently knows. Just as he created Gears 2 through 5 as power-ups, he might develop a form that combines Gear 5 with this ultimate Haki, creating something functionally equivalent to Gear 6, even if it isn't called that. Theory 2. The Rumble Ball Enhancement. The second major theory involves Rumble Balls. Chopper uses these special drugs to unlock transformations beyond what his Devil Fruit normally allows, including his Monster Point form. The theory suggests Luffy could use a similar substance to push his already awakened Devil Fruit even further. This idea gained support because Chopper is on Luffy's crew, making the Rumble Ball technology accessible. Some fans speculate that a modified version created specifically for Luffy could temporarily boost Gear 5 into an even more powerful state, effectively creating Gear 6 for short periods. Theory 3. Hanuman Mode and the Mother Flame. A third theory connects to mythology and symbolism. Throughout One Piece, Oda has drawn parallels between Luffy and Hanuman, the monkey god from Hindu mythology. Luffy's strongest attack is called Bajrang Gun, a direct reference to Hanuman. The theory notes that, in Hindu mythology, Hanuman tried to eat the sundae. One Piece introduced the Mother Flame, a mysterious power source that the world government desperately wants and that resembles a sundae. Some fans theorize that Luffy eating or absorbing the Mother Flame could trigger a transformation beyond Gear 5. They imagine this form would have themes of gold and red, would give Luffy an afro like his old Afro Luffy form from the Davy Back fight, and would be called Hanuman Mode. This transformation would represent Luffy finally matching the full power of the sun god Nika. Theory 4. The Eternal Flame Connection. The fourth theory takes inspiration from another mythological figure, Lucifer, the Lightbringer. The Punk Hazard arc mentioned something called the Eternal Flame. Fans noticed that Gear 5 already gives Luffy flame-shaped hair and associates him with light and joy. A Gear 6 based on the Eternal Flame concept could manifest as a flaming form that represents Luffy bringing the dawn of a new era to the world. This ties into the recurring motif of Dawn in the series, and Luffy's attacks named after Dawn, like Dawn Rocket and Dawn Whip. Theory 5. True. Nika Takeover. There's also a darker theory that Gear 5 itself has a hidden, more dangerous form that Luffy hasn't accessed yet. Dr. Vegapunk warned that awakened Zoan fruits carry a risk. The animal spirit within the fruit can potentially take over the user's mind. The jailer beasts in Impel Down lost their intelligence after awakening. Rob Lucci became more bestial after his awakening. Even Kaido showed moments of pure animal instinct overwhelming his tactical thinking. Yet Luffy seems completely in control during Gear 5. He laughs, jokes, and maintains his personality. Some fans theorize this means Luffy hasn't fully unleashed Nika's power yet. If Nika's personality ever completely took over Luffy, the result could be terrifying. Imagine Luffy's reality-warping powers, combined with an uncontrollable god consciousness and overwhelming Conqueror's Haki that knocks out everyone nearby. This True Gear 5 or Nika mode might be what the world government actually fears. The case against Gear 6. Arguments against Gear 6 are equally strong. Luffy explicitly called Gear 5 his peak while fighting the world's strongest creature. The episode title reinforced this message. From a narrative perspective, One Piece is in its final saga. Oda has stated he wants to finish the series. There isn't time for Luffy to develop an entirely new gear from scratch the way he did with previous forms. Gear 2 took years of story time before it appeared. Gear 4 required 2 years of training during the time skip. Creating Gear 6 would require similar development time that the story simply doesn't have left. Awakening as the ultimate limit. Additionally, Devil Fruit Awakening is presented as the absolute pinnacle of what a fruit can do. There is no stage beyond awakening. Luffy has awakened his fruit. In terms of Devil Fruit transformation, he has reached the end of the road. Any power-up beyond this point would have to come from a completely different source, like Haki, rather than from the fruit itself. This suggests that what fans call Gear 6 might not be a gear at all in the traditional sense. Narrative logic demands growth. The strongest argument for some kind of power-up beyond current Gear 5 comes from simple narrative logic. Luffy used Gear 5 to defeat Kaido, who was introduced as the world's strongest creature. But Kaido wasn't the final boss. The story still has Blackbeard, Shanks, the 5 Elders, and Imu ahead. If Luffy's peak form could barely handle Kaido, and if that same form proved ineffective against the Elders' immortality, then something has to change. Either Luffy will master new applications of Gear 5 combined with superior Haki, or he'll develop something entirely new. Mini-Gear 4 sets a precedent. Recent chapters have shown Luffy creating variations within his existing powers. In Chapter 11:29 during the Elbaf arc, Luffy demonstrated Mini-Gear 4. Instead of inflating his entire body like in regular Gear 4, he concentrated the muscle inflation into just his arm. This allowed him to use Gear 4's compressed power while maintaining his regular fighting style and mobility. Fans noted this as evidence that Luffy can still evolve his techniques, even without creating entirely new gears. Perhaps Gear 5 will develop subforms similar to how Gear 4 has Bound Man, Tank Man, and Snake Man. The stamina issue. The energy cost of Gear 5 also factors into these theories. When Luffy first used Gear 5, it drained him so completely that he appeared to age into an old man. When it wore off, he could barely move afterward, while eating massive amounts of food restores his stamina. This drawback limits how long Luffy can maintain the form. In extended battles against opponents like the 5 Elders, this time limit becomes a critical weakness. Some fans theorize that Gear 6 might actually refer to a perfected version of Gear 5 that eliminates or reduces these stamina issues, allowing Luffy to fight at his peak for much longer. Community consensus shifts. The community consensus appears to be shifting. While hardcore fans initially insisted Gear 6 would never happen because Luffy said Gear 5 was his peak, more recent story developments have made people reconsider. The dominant view now is that Luffy won't get a traditional Gear 6 transformation, but he will achieve power-ups that effectively serve the same function. These could include mastering advanced Haki techniques that rival Joy Boy's power, developing Gear 5 subforms, or finding ways to enhance Gear 5 through external means like modified rumble balls. Each enemy demands different solutions. What makes this theory compelling is how Oda has structured the remaining threats. Blackbeard's Yami Yami no Mi can nullify devil fruits. An awakened version of that fruit might completely negate Gear 5, forcing Luffy to rely on pure haki. Emu has demonstrated abilities that seem beyond normal devil fruits, possibly related to souls or reality manipulation. The Holy Knights appear to possess unique powers we haven't seen yet. Shanks has shown haki mastery far beyond Luffy's current level. Each of these enemies presents a challenge that current Gear 5 cannot cleanly solve. Luffy's pattern of growth. The theory also considers that Luffy's growth has always involved learning from stronger opponents and adapting. He created Gear 2 after seeing CP9 use Soru. He developed Gear 4 after training with giant beasts on Rusukaina. His advanced haki came from training in Udon Prison and fighting Kaido. Following this pattern, Luffy should develop something new from his experiences fighting the Elders and learning from Scopper Gaban. Whether fans call this Gear 6 or simply Evolved Gear 5 plus Mastered Haki might be semantic, but the power-up itself seems inevitable. The Five Elders' reaction. One interesting aspect rarely discussed is that the Gorosei themselves expected Luffy to be more dangerous. When Guernica photographed Luffy in Gear 5 and sent the image to the world government, the Five Elders were horrified that this picture would become public. They considered Luffy's awakened form too dangerous to reveal. Yet, when they actually fought Gear 5 Luffy on Egghead, they handled him relatively well, despite not defeating him. This suggests either the Elders overestimated Gear 5, or they know something about its potential that Luffy hasn't tapped into yet. Semantics versus substance. The question ultimately comes down to semantics versus substance. Will there be a form called Gear 6? Probably not. Based on Luffy's statement and the narrative structure, will Luffy achieve a power level significantly beyond what he demonstrated when fighting Kaido? Almost certainly yes, because the story requires it. Whether this comes from perfecting Gear 5, learning ultimate haki techniques, developing subforms, or some combination of these elements, Luffy must become stronger to face the final saga's challenges. What the theory really represents. The Gear 6 theory represents fans recognizing this narrative necessity while debating what form it will take. Some imagine a dramatic new transformation with visual changes and a new name. Others expect a more subtle evolution where Luffy simply masters what he already has. A few theorize something completely unexpected that hasn't been foreshadowed yet, but nearly everyone agrees on the fundamental premise. Gear 5 as it currently exists cannot be Luffy's final power level. The story isn't over. The threats keep escalating, and Monkey D. Luffy has never stopped growing stronger when people needed him to. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have the Hanuman mode theory, Gear 6 and the Mother Flame connection. The Hanuman mode theory, Gear 6 and the Mother Flame connection, the mythological foundation. One of the most fascinating theories about Luffy's potential power beyond Gear 5 connects to Hindu mythology and a specific deity that Eiichiro Oda has already referenced directly in the series. Lord Hanuman, known as the Monkey God, in Hindu tradition, has become central to speculation about what fans call Gear 6 or Hanuman mode. The connection between Luffy and Hanuman wasn't subtle fan speculation. Oda made it explicitly clear when Luffy used his most powerful attack against Kaido, naming it Gomu Gomu no Bajrang Gun. Bajrang, also spelled Vajrang, is another name for Hanuman, specifically referring to Bajrangbali, or Hanuman's indestructible diamond-like body. The Hindu deity Hanuman stands as one of the most revered figures in Hindu mythology. He appears as the central character in the ancient Sanskrit epic Ramayana. Hanuman was born as a Vanara, which means he belonged to a race of monkey-like humanoids who lived in forests. Despite this animalistic appearance, Hanuman possessed godlike powers and served as one of the most loyal devotees of Lord Rama. The parallels to Luffy's character go far beyond just having monkey in his name. Both characters share an incredible appetite, boundless energy, and a joyful approach to combat that distinguishes them from more serious warriors. The direct evidence from Oda. Oda didn't leave fans guessing about this connection. In Chapter 1048 of the One Piece manga, when Luffy first used the Bajrang gun attack, Oda included a note at the bottom of the panel. The creator explicitly stated that Bajrang Punch refers to Bajrang Bali, the Hindu monkey god. This direct confirmation from the author himself eliminated any doubt that Luffy's character draws inspiration from Hanuman. Later, in Road to Laugh Tale Volume 4, a concept art collection released alongside the manga, Oda name-dropped Hanuman again when discussing Gear 5's development. These weren't accidental references. Oda deliberately connected Luffy to this specific deity. The Bajrangun technique itself demonstrates the scale of this mythological inspiration. When Luffy inflates his fist to nearly the size of Onigashima Island, coating it with both advanced armament haki and conqueror's haki, he creates an attack so massive that Kaido, in his full dragon form, looks tiny by comparison. The sheer destructive power of this technique mirrors Hanuman's own legendary strength. In Hindu mythology, Hanuman could grow to enormous sizes, lift mountains, and perform feats that seemed impossible, even for other gods. The visual of Luffy's island-sized fist directly parallels stories of Hanuman, expanding his body to cross oceans or tower over enemies. Hanuman's most famous story, the theory connecting Luffy to a potential Gear 6, centers on one particular story from Hanuman's childhood. When Hanuman was young, he saw the sun rising in the sky. Being hungry and possessing a massive appetite even as a child, Hanuman mistook the sun for a ripe fruit. He flew toward the sun, intending to eat it. This act of attempting to devour the sun became one of the most famous tales in Hindu mythology. The king of gods, Indra, struck Hanuman with a thunderbolt to stop him from eating the sundae. This blow knocked Hanuman unconscious and broke his jaw, which is where one interpretation of his name comes from. The assault on Hanuman enraged his father, Vayu, who was the god of wind. Vayu withdrew all air from the universe in retaliation, threatening to suffocate every living being. The other gods panicked and gathered to appease Vayu. To correct their mistake and calm Hanuman's father, various deities granted Hanuman an array of powerful boons and divine abilities. Brahma declared that no weapon could kill Hanuman. Indra granted him immunity from his own thunderbolt weapon. Other gods gave Hanuman invincibility in battle, the ability to change his size at will, and powers that made him one of the strongest beings in Hindu cosmology. These gifts transformed Hanuman from a mischievous monkey child into a deity of immense power. The Mother Flame parallel. The connection to One Piece becomes clear when considering what the Mother Flame represents. Dr. Vegapunk created the Mother Flame as an alternative energy source on Egghead Island. The flame itself is small but incredibly bright, contained in a massive reactor tank labeled S-108. Vegapunk envisioned it as an undying flame that would provide unlimited energy, potentially even allowing him to create his own sundae. The visual description matters here. The Mother Flame is literally described as a flame that resembles a sundae. When York stole a sample and sent it to the world government, Emu and the Five Elders used it to power an ancient weapon that completely destroyed the Lulusia kingdom in seconds. The parallel theory suggests that just as young Hanuman tried to eat the sun thinking it was fruit, Luffy might attempt to consume or absorb the mother flame. Luffy has already demonstrated the ability to eat things that shouldn't be edible. In Gear 5, he ate one of Kizaru's laser beams and dispersed it as light throughout his body. His Toon Force abilities allow him to interact with reality in impossible ways. If presented with the mother flame, especially in a moment of hunger or desperation, Luffy consuming it fits his character perfectly. The theory proposes this act could trigger a transformation beyond Gear 5, unlocking what fans have started calling Hanuman Mode. What Hanuman Mode might look like. Theorists have developed specific predictions about how this form would manifest. First, they expect visual changes that mirror both Hanuman and the Mother Flame's properties. The form would likely feature gold and red color schemes, representing both the divine nature of Hanuman and the fiery appearance of the Mother Flame. Some fans specifically predict Luffy would gain an afro in this form, creating a callback to Afro Luffy from the Davy Backfight arc. That seemingly silly moment where Usopp convinced Luffy that wearing an afro would make him stronger could become significant foreshadowing. An afro made of flame or resembling the Mother Flame's appearance would tie these elements together. The power boost would need to exceed Gear 5 significantly to justify calling it a new form. Drawing from Hanuman's abilities, this transformation might grant Luffy true invincibility rather than just enhanced durability. Hanuman received boons that made him invulnerable to weapons and immune to death in battle. A Luffy who absorbed the Mother Flame might gain similar properties, potentially becoming temporarily immune to damage the way Hanuman was protected by divine blessings. The Mother Flame powers an ancient weapon capable of destroying islands instantly. That same energy inside Luffy's body could amplify his attacks to a level that surpasses even the Bajrang gun. The Vayu and Dragon connection. Another piece of supporting evidence comes from Luffy's father, Monkey D. Dragon leads the revolutionary army and has demonstrated what appears to be wind manipulation powers, though his devil fruit has never been officially confirmed. In Hindu mythology, Hanuman's father is Vayu, the god of wind. This creates a direct parallel between Luffy and Hanuman that extends to their parentage. Both have fathers associated with wind powers. Both are monkey-themed characters. Both possess enormous appetites and joyful personalities. These aren't coincidences. Oda has clearly modeled significant aspects of Luffy's character on Hanuman, which gives credibility to the theory that he might follow Hanuman's most famous story arc. The connection to Dragon also provides narrative weight. Dragon has remained largely absent from Luffy's story, appearing only briefly despite being built up as one of the world's most dangerous men. If Luffy were to consume the Mother Flame and face consequences similar to how Hanuman was struck down for trying to eat the sun, Dragon might play the role of Vayu. Just as Vayu withdrew all air to protect his son, Dragon might be forced to intervene, using his wind powers to save Luffy from the backlash of absorbing such immense energy. This would finally bring Dragon into the story in a meaningful way while maintaining the mythological parallel. The S-108 mystery. Fans have noticed something intriguing about how the Mother Flame is labeled. The tank containing it bears the code S-108. Throughout Egghead, the S prefix has been associated with Seraphim, Vegapunk's cloned warriors based on the Lunarian race. Each Seraphim has a number and the S designation. The Mother Flame sharing this naming convention suggests a connection. Some theorists propose that just as Vegapunk created Seraphim by combining Lunarian genetics with other elements, the mother flame might involve Lunarian fire in its creation. Lunarians are known for the flames that burn on their backs, flames that grant them special defensive properties. The physical appearance supports this connection. The mother flame looks similar to the fire on a Lunarian's back. Both burn continuously without fuel. Both possess properties that seem to defy normal physics. King, the last known Lunarian before the Seraphim, demonstrated that his flame granted him incredible durability. When his flame was burning, attacks simply didn't hurt him. If the mother flame contains concentrated Lunarian fire energy, consuming it might grant Luffy similar properties. This would explain how Hanuman mode could make Luffy temporarily invincible, matching Hanuman's mythological invulnerability. Why this form makes narrative sense. The timing of this theory coincides with where the story currently stands. Luffy has fought the 5 elders and failed to permanently damage them despite using Gear 5. The elders regenerated from every attack. Only Joy Boy's stored Haki, released by the ancient robot Emmet, managed to truly hurt them. This demonstrates that Gear 5 alone cannot overcome the series' final antagonists. Emu possesses power that dwarfs even the elders. The Holy Knights have emerged as another threat. Blackbeard's devil fruit can nullify other devil fruits, which could completely shut down Gear 5. Luffy needs something beyond his current abilities. The Mother Flame represents one of the few power sources in One Piece that rivals ancient weapons. It literally powers an ancient weapon strong enough to erase islands instantly. Vegapunk called creating it one of his greatest sins because he knew how destructive it could be. If any object in the series could grant Luffy a power-up significant enough to face Emu and the final war, the Mother Flame qualifies. The mythological parallel to Hanuman provides a framework for how this power-up would work while maintaining the story's established rules. Luffy wouldn't be inventing a new gear through training. He would be absorbing external energy, similar to how Nightmare Luffy temporarily gained power from absorbing 100 shadows. The criticism and alternative interpretations. Not everyone in the community accepts this theory. Critics argue that introducing a transformation based on consuming an external power source contradicts the established pattern of Luffy's growth. Every gear he has developed came from his own creativity and training. Gear 2 mimicked CP9's Soru technique through accelerated blood flow. Gear 3 involved inflating his bones with air. Gear 4 combined muscle inflation with Haki. Gear 5 came from awakening his devil fruit. All of these represented Luffy, pushing his own abilities to new limits. Having him gain a new form by eating something feels less earned, more like a convenient power-up rather than personal growth. Others suggest that the Hanuman parallels might already be complete. Oda referenced Hanuman through the Bajrang gun attack and through Gear 5's general design philosophy. Hanuman fights with joy and playfulness, which perfectly describes Gear 5 Luffy. Hanuman can change his size at will, just as Gear 5 Luffy can become giant without needing to blow air into his body. Hanuman is indestructible, and Gear 5 grants Luffy cartoon physics that let him survive attacks that should be fatal. Maybe Gear 5 is Hanuman mode, and fans are looking for something that already exists. The Bajrang gun serves as the climax of this mythological inspiration, rather than a hint towards something even greater. The practical implementation. If this theory proves correct, how would it actually happen in the story? The Straw Hats have already left Egghead Island. The Mother Flame remains on Egghead under world government control, with York continuing to produce it for Emu and the Elders. For Luffy to consume it, the story would need to bring him back to Egghead or transport the Mother Flame elsewhere. The most likely scenario involves the final war at Mary Geoise. If the world government transports Mother Flame to their headquarters, and if the final battle takes Luffy there, he might encounter it during the climactic confrontation with Imu. The narrative structure could mirror Hanuman's story beat for beat. Luffy, hungry in the middle of battle, sees the Mother Flame. His simple mind might mistake it for food, just as young Hanuman mistook the sun for fruit. He consumes it without understanding the consequences. The immense energy nearly destroys him, similar to how Indra's thunderbolt struck Hanuman down. Dragon arrives, using his wind powers to protect his son, or to stabilize the energy raging inside Luffy's body. Other allies might need to intervene as well, granting Luffy additional power or helping him master the Mother Flame's energy. The result would be Hanuman mode, a transformation that combines Gear 5's freedom with the Mother Flame's destructive potential. The visual spectacle. Part of what makes this theory appealing is imagining what it would look like animated. Gear 5 already brings cartoon physics and rubber hose animation aesthetics to One Piece. Adding flames, gold coloring, and an afro would create something visually distinct while maintaining Gear 5's foundation. Luffy's attacks might leave trails of fire. His hair could burn with the Mother Flame's energy while shaped into an afro. The gold and red color scheme would contrast beautifully with Gear 5's predominantly white appearance. His eyes might glow like the sun itself. Every punch could carry the destructive force that erased Lulusia Kingdom, making even his basic attacks capable of island-level devastation. The thematic resonance works too. Luffy is called the sun god Nika. The Mother Flame is explicitly described as energy meant to create a Sunday Luffy. Consuming and embodying that solar energy completes the metaphor. He would become a living sun, bringing light and freedom to a world trapped under Imu's shadow. This fits Nika's role as the warrior of liberation. Hanuman himself is sometimes associated with the sun through his attempted consumption of it. The layers of symbolism stack together into something that feels intentionally crafted rather than coincidental. The community debate. This theory has sparked extensive discussion across One Piece communities. Some fans embrace it enthusiastically, creating fan art of what Hanuman mode might look like and speculating about specific attacks Luffy would use in this form. Others remain skeptical, but acknowledge the evidence supporting the theory. The direct confirmation that Oda based the Bajrang Gun on Hanuman proves he's willing to draw from Hindu mythology. The question is whether that reference stands alone or foreshadows something larger. YouTube theorists have made videos analyzing every parallel between Luffy and Hanuman, finding connections in their personalities, their family relationships, their fighting styles, and their roles as liberators. The debate often comes down to how much trust fans place in Oda's long-term planning. Those who believe in Hanuman mode point to how Oda foreshadows events years in advance. Gear 5's cartoonish nature was hinted at subtly throughout the series. Devil Fruit Awakening was mentioned hundreds of chapters before Luffy achieved it. If Oda has been building toward Luffy consuming the Mother Flame, fans won't recognize the foreshadowing until it happens. Skeptics counter that not every mythological reference needs to be a multi-arc setup. Sometimes, Oda includes cool references simply because they fit the moment, like naming the Bajrang Gun, without planning elaborate future developments around them. Whether Hanuman mode becomes real or remains fan speculation, the theory represents creative engagement with One Piece's mythology. It demonstrates how deeply fans analyze the series, connecting dots between Hindu mythology, established story elements like the Mother Flame, and narrative needs like Luffy requiring greater power. The theory makes logical sense. It has textual support. It provides a clear path for Luffy to surpass Gear 5 without contradicting his statement that Gear 5 is his peak in terms of Devil Fruit transformation. Absorbing the Mother Flame wouldn't be a new gear in the traditional sense, but rather an enhancement of Gear 5. Much like how combining Gears 2 and 3 created something stronger than either alone. Only Eiichiro Oda knows if this theory will come true. But the fact that fans can construct such a detailed and plausible theory using evidence from the manga itself shows the richness of One Piece's world building. The Hanuman connection is real. The Mother Flame exists as an object of immense power that needs to play a role in the story's conclusion. Luffy needs to become stronger to face Imu. All the pieces exist for this theory to materialize. Whether they come together in this specific way remains to be seen, but the possibility alone has captured imaginations throughout the fanbase. And in a series built on dreams and impossible adventures, maybe a monkey who becomes a sun god consuming a flame meant to create suns isn't so far-fetched after all. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to Rumble Ball Enhancement Theory. Chopper's medicine as a Gear 6 catalyst. Rumble Ball Enhancement Theory. Chopper's little yellow pill might be the key to Luffy's next power-up. The Rumble Ball Enhancement Theory suggests that Tony Chopper could create a specialized drug to amplify Luffy's Gear 5 transformation, or even unlock entirely new forms. This theory has gained serious traction in the fandom, and when you look at what Chopper has already accomplished with his pharmaceutical genius, it starts making a lot of sense. What Rumble Balls actually do. Chopper invented something that fundamentally changed how Devil Fruits work. The Rumble Ball, MB, a small yellow pill that distorts the wavelength of a Devil Fruit user's biochemistry. Through this invention, Chopper became the first person in history to artificially augment Devil Fruit powers. The drug unlocks transformations beyond the standard 3 forms that every Zoan user possesses. For Chopper, who ate the human fruit, this meant accessing forms like Guard Point, Horn Point, Arm Point, and Jumping Point. Each form emphasized different aspects of his reindeer and human physiology. Guard Point turned his fur into an impenetrable defensive shield. Horn Point gave him massive antlers for ramming attacks. Arm Point bulked up his arms for devastating punches. Jumping Point enhanced his legs for incredible leaping ability. But the real game changer was Monster Point. Originally, consuming 3 Rumble Balls within 6 hours would trigger this transformation. Monster Point combined every aspect of Chopper's other forms into one massive, devastating package. He'd grow to the size of a giant, towering over most humans. His strength increased exponentially. The problem was he'd lose all consciousness and control, becoming a rampaging beast that attacked everything in sight. Monster Point was terrifying for everyone involved. When Chopper first discovered this form accidentally, he nearly destroyed an entire village on Drum Island. During the Enies Lobby arc, Chopper used Monster Point as a desperate last resort against CP9 agent Kumadori. He annihilated Kumadori easily, but then went berserk and put his own crewmates in danger. Frankie had to throw him into the ocean to stop the rampage. The transformation drained Chopper completely, leaving him paralyzed from exhaustion for hours. 2 years of training changes everything. The 2-year time skip transformed Chopper's relationship with his Rumble Balls completely. Training in the Torino Kingdom, Chopper mastered his physiology. He learned to access all his transformation points without needing Rumble Balls at all. The only transformation that still required a Rumble Ball was Monster Point, but even that changed dramatically. Chopper refined the drug so that one rumble ball would activate Monster Point for 3 minutes with full consciousness and control. When the Straw Hats reunited at Sabaody Archipelago, Chopper demonstrated his new mastery. He entered Monster Point with only one rumble ball and maintained complete control. His crewmates were shocked and delighted. The Doctor, who had been part of the Weakling trio, now had a transformation that could handle serious threats. Then came one of the strangest partnerships in One Piece. After the Straw Hats defeated Caesar Clown on Punk Hazard and took him prisoner, the mad scientist developed an unexpected interest in Chopper's research. Caesar volunteered a formula to extend the Rumble Ball's duration tenfold. Together, they created an improved Rumble Ball that utilized gigantification effects. The result was spectacular. Monster Point could now last 30 minutes instead of 3 minutes. That's a massive upgrade. 30 minutes gives Chopper actual staying power. During the Onigashima raid in Wano, Chopper used this extended Monster Point to battle Queen the Plague, and even landed powerful strikes against an opponent who should have been completely out of his league. But the improved formula came with new side effects. After Monster Point expires, Chopper reverts to a shrunken version of Brain Point that looks simultaneously aged and infantile. Fans call it Baby Geezer, and he's completely powerless in this form for about 15 minutes. The Bepo Breakthrough. Everything changed with Chapter 1081. Trafalgar Law and the Heart Pirates had just left Wano when they ran straight into an ambush by the Blackbeard pirates. The battle was brutal and one-sided. Blackbeard's crew tore the Polar Tang submarine in half. Law himself was defeated, lying wounded, while Blackbeard prepared to steal the Ope no Mi. Then Beppo remembered something. The polar bear Mink recalled an exchange with Chopper before leaving Wano. Chopper had given him medicine, a prototype with no guaranteed effects. Bepo consumed the drug and transformed into his Sulong form without a full moon in the sky. That moment was huge. Sulong is the Mink tribe's ultimate transformation, achievable only when looking at a full moon. Chopper had somehow created a drug that bypassed the moon requirement entirely. Bepo's Sulong form was powerful enough to knock back Blackbeard, one of the emperors of the sea. He grabbed the wounded Law and escaped by diving into the ocean. If Bepo hadn't taken that drug, Law would have died. This proved something critical. Chopper can create transformation-enhancing drugs for beings other than himself. The medicine worked on Bepo's innate Mink abilities, not on a devil fruit. It unlocked latent power without needing the usual conditions. The Sulong drug didn't give Bepo new powers. It gave him access to his existing power without the typical requirements, applying the science to Luffy. Now take everything we know about Rumble Balls and apply it to Luffy. His devil fruit is the Hito no Mi model Nika, a mythical Zoan that grants the properties of the legendary sun god. Gear 5 is the awakened form of this fruit. It gives Luffy cartoon physics, the ability to rubberize his environment, and physical abilities that surpass anything from his previous gears. Gear 5 combines characteristics of both Paramecia and Zoan awakenings. Luffy can rubberize his environment, grabbing lightning bolts and using them as weapons, turning the ground into a trampoline. But Gear 5 also enhances Luffy's physical abilities to enormous levels and gives him a transformation state, which are Zoan awakening traits. The power is incredible, but it comes with serious drawbacks. Gear 5 drains Luffy's energy at an alarming rate. During his battle with Kaido, He had to restart the transformation multiple times because he ran out of stamina. After using Gear 5, Luffy visibly ages, his body appearing decades older from the exhaustion. He becomes completely drained, unable to move or fight. The only way to recover quickly is by eating massive amounts of food. There's also the personality shift. When Luffy enters Gear 5, he becomes more carefree and playful even in serious situations. Some of this might be the Nika fruit's influence. The world government spent 800 years trying and failing to obtain the Nika fruit. They theorized this was due to the fruit having its own will. What a Nika rumble ball could do. Imagine Chopper creating a rumble ball specifically designed for Luffy's mythical Zoan. The possibilities fall into several categories. First, duration extension. If Chopper could create a drug that extends Gear 5's duration from a few minutes to 30 minutes or longer, that would be a massive upgrade. Luffy could maintain his most powerful form for entire battles without the transformation cutting out at critical moments. Second, energy efficiency. The rumble ball could potentially reduce the metabolic drain of maintaining Gear 5. This wouldn't just let him stay in Gear 5 longer, it would reduce the brutal exhaustion and aging effects afterward. Luffy could use Gear 5 and still have energy left to keep fighting. Third, power amplification. Caesar's improved rumble ball made Monster Point stronger through gigantification properties. A similar enhancement for Gear 5 could push Luffy's already ridiculous abilities even further. His punches could hit harder, his giant transformations could grow larger, his cartoon physics could bend reality even more. Fourth, and most interesting, is unlocking additional transformation points. Chopper's rumble balls gave him access to 7 different forms beyond his standard 3 Zoan transformations. Luffy, with a mythical Zoan fruit that's far more complex than Chopper's regular Zoan, should logically have even more transformation potential waiting to be discovered. Maybe a defensive form that emphasizes rubbery durability. Maybe an agility form combining stretching with enhanced speed. The rumble ball could unlock these variants without requiring years of training. The mythical Zoan factor. Mythical Zoan fruits are fundamentally different from regular Zoans. They're the rarest devil fruit type, and they grant abilities beyond simple animal transformations. Marco's phoenix fruit lets him generate healing blue flames. Kaido's azure dragon fruit gives him control over fire, wind, lightning, and clouds. Sengoku's Buddha fruit enhances his physical abilities and generates shockwaves. Every mythical Zoan has powers that resemble paramecia abilities layered on top of the Zoan transformation. The Nika fruit follows this pattern perfectly. Gear 5 gives Luffy cartoon physics and environmental manipulation, combined with enhanced physical capabilities and transformation state of a Zoan awakening. If mythical Zoans are more complex than regular Zoans, they should have more complex transformation possibilities. Chopper achieved 7 forms with his regular human fruit. Luffy's mythical Zoan might have transformation potential that makes Chopper's 7 forms look simple by comparison. The rumble ball could be the pharmaceutical key that unlocks that potential. Narrative setup and character arc. Oda doesn't introduce elements randomly. When he showed Chopper giving Bepo that Sulong drug right as the series enters its final saga, that was deliberate setup. That moment established that Chopper's pharmaceutical abilities extend beyond his own devil fruit. The groundwork is laid, the precedent is set. There's beautiful narrative symmetry to this theory. Chopper joined the crew as the doctor, explicitly not a fighter. His role has always been support, healing injuries, creating medicine, keeping the crew healthy. But what if Chopper's greatest contribution isn't healing wounds after battle? What if it's creating the drug that allows his captain to push beyond current limits and defeat the final enemies? Imagine the moment. Luffy in a desperate battle against Emu or Blackbeard. Gear 5 pushed to its limits and fading. Luffy aging rapidly as the side effects hit. Then Chopper runs up, holds out that little yellow pill, and says with complete confidence, "Luffy, trust me." Luffy, without hesitation, pops it in his mouth, and Gear 5 roars back stronger than before. That scene would encapsulate everything One Piece represents. Nakama trusting each other completely. The doctor saving the strongest fighter through medical knowledge. Science and willpower combining to overcome impossible odds. Chopper, who spent his life before the crew feeling worthless, becoming the crucial factor in achieving their ultimate dream. Scientific plausibility and risks. Within One Piece's world, this theory is scientifically plausible. Caesar Clown proved that devil fruit powers can be artificially enhanced through chemistry. Vegapunk created artificial devil fruits and decoded how devil fruits grant their powers. Chopper has studied under great teachers and collaborated with Caesar, absorbing knowledge from a genius who rivaled Vegapunk. But a Nika Rumble Ball wouldn't be consequence-free. Every power-up in One Piece comes with costs. Gear 2 shortens Luffy's lifespan. Gear 4 leaves him unable to use haki afterward. Gear 5 causes extreme exhaustion. A Rumble Ball would likely have its own side effects. In a minus, maybe worse exhaustion similar to Chopper's baby geezer form. Maybe limits on how often it can be used. Maybe risks of amplifying the Nika fruit's influence on Luffy's consciousness. There's also risk that enhancing Gear 5 artificially could be dangerous in unexpected ways. Devil fruits have wills, especially mythical Zoans. The Nika fruit avoided capture for 800 years. Forcing it beyond natural limits through pharmaceutical means might trigger consequences nobody predicts. The Rumble Ball enhancement theory divides fans. Supporters love it for giving Chopper a major endgame role and continuing Oda's foreshadowing patterns. Critics dislike it for feeling like a shortcut that undermines themes of hard work and determination. They want Luffy to earn strength through training, not pills. Whether this specific theory proves correct remains to be seen. But the discussions around it highlight what makes One Piece special. Fans engage deeply with mechanics, extrapolate from established rules, and create elaborate theories. These keep the community active between chapters and enrich the experience of following the series. The theory is popular because it makes logical sense based on what we know, would give Chopper a satisfying character moment, and would address Gear 5's limitations unexpectedly. Whether it happens exactly as theorized or Oda takes a completely different approach, Chopper's Rumble Ball research will continue playing a role in the story. That little yellow pill represents too much narrative potential to remain limited to just Chopper and Beppo. Only Oda knows if this theory will become reality, but fans will keep speculating until the final chapter reveals the truth. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have Eternal Flame Theory. Gear 6 as Lucifer, the Lightbringer. Eternal Flame Theory. Luffy might transform into something that brings literal light to the world. The Eternal Flame Theory proposes that Gear 6 could manifest as a fiery transformation inspired by Lucifer, the Lightbringer. Not the fallen angel of Christian mythology, but the classical Roman concept of Venus as the morning star that heralds the dawn. This theory connects Luffy's role as a bringer of freedom with ancient symbolism about light defeating darkness. potentially through consuming or channeling the mother flame that Vegapunk created on Egghead Island. The Lightbringer mythology. Lucifer gets a bad reputation in modern times, but the original meaning had nothing to do with evil. In Roman mythology, Lucifer simply meant light bringer or light bearer. It was the name given to the planet Venus when it appeared in the morning sky just before sunrise. The Greeks called it Phosphoros or Eosphoros, meaning dawn bringer. This morning star was personified as a male figure carrying a torch, heralding the arrival of day. Venus appears as both the morning star and the evening star, depending on where it is in its orbit. Ancient cultures originally thought these were two separate celestial objects. The morning star announced the dawn, bringing light after darkness. The evening star appeared at sunset, signaling the arrival of night. This duality, light versus darkness, beginning versus ending, created rich mythology around Venus across multiple cultures. The morning star was the brightest object in the sky after the sun and moon. Its appearance just before sunrise made it symbolically powerful. It represented hope, the promise of a new day, the triumph of light over the darkness of night. In Greek mythology, Phosphoros was called the son of Aurora, the dawn, and often depicted bearing a torch. He literally brought the light that preceded the Sunday. This concept of the dawn bringer, the one who signals the end of darkness and the arrival of light, maps perfectly onto Luffy's role in One Piece. He's the warrior of liberation, the one who brings freedom and joy to people trapped in oppression. He defeats tyrants and breaks chains. He brings smiles to faces that have forgotten how to laugh. He quite literally brings light into the darkest places. Sun God, Nika, and the dawn. Luffy's devil fruit is the Hito Hito no Mi model. Nika, the sun god fruit. Nika was a legendary figure from the Void Century who freed slaves and brought laughter to the oppressed. The sun symbolism is already established. Gear 5 gives Luffy white, flaming hair that rises like solar flames. His powers embody freedom and joy, characteristics associated with sunlight and warmth. But there's a progression here that fans might be missing. The sun doesn't just appear suddenly. Dawn comes first. The morning star announces the sun's arrival. Lucifer, the light bringer, precedes the sun itself in the sky. If Luffy represents the sun through his Nika powers, a transformation that represents the dawn, the light that comes before the sun, would be thematically perfect for bridging the gap between his current power and his ultimate destiny. One Piece is deeply concerned with the concept of dawn. The very first chapter and the very first volume are titled Romance Dawn. Characters constantly reference bringing about a new dawn, a new era, a new age for the world. The Revolutionary Army, led by Luffy's father Dragon, fights to bring the dawn of freedom to a world ruled by the celestial dragons. The D in so many character names might itself relate to dawn. Oda has woven dawn symbolism throughout the entire series. Luffy, bringing the dawn, makes narrative sense. He's the protagonist destined to change the world. His awakened Gear 5 form includes techniques with Dawn in their names: Dawn Rocket, Dawn Gatling, Dawn Whip, Dawn Balloon. Oda is already connecting Luffy's ultimate power with dawn imagery, a Gear 6 transformation that fully embodies the concept of the Dawn Bringer, the morning star that heralds the sun, would be the natural evolution. The Mother Flame connection. Here's where the theory gets really interesting. During the Egghead Island arc, Vegapunk revealed he'd created something called the Mother Flame. This alternative energy source was envisioned as an undying flame that could power artificial suns. Vegapunk wanted to give the world unlimited, clean energy by creating suns that never went out. The Mother Flame represents the pinnacle of scientific achievement in One Piece's world. But York, one of Vegapunk's satellite bodies, stole a sample of the Mother Flame and sent it to the Five Elders and Emu. They used it to power an ancient weapon, likely the one that destroyed Lulusia Kingdom in an instant. The Mother Flame became a weapon of mass destruction instead of the source of hope Vegapunk intended. That stolen sample might be gone, but Vegapunk's power plant on Egghead still exists, and presumably still produces the Mother Flame. The theory suggests Luffy will consume the Mother Flame, not as food in the traditional sense, but as a way to power up his already awakened devil fruit. This would parallel the Hanuman mythology that Oda has referenced repeatedly with Luffy. In Hindu mythology, the young Hanuman tried to eat the sun because he thought it was a fruit. Gods intervened to stop him. But the story establishes Hanuman's connection to consuming celestial fire. Oda has drawn explicit parallels between Luffy and Hanuman. Luffy's most powerful attack is called Bajrang Gun, named after Bajrang Bali, another name for Hanuman. The attack manifests as a massive, flaming fist that dwarfs even giants. Luffy's appetite is legendary, constantly eating impossible amounts of food. His stretching powers and monkey-like behavior mirror Hanuman's stories. The groundwork is there for Luffy to eat flame, fire in Luffy's arsenal. Luffy already uses fire in his attacks, despite not having a fire-based devil fruit. His Red Hawk technique ignites his fist in flames as he attacks. Red Rock does the same, but with a giant Gear 3 fist. These attacks appeared after the time skip, and Luffy attributes them to channeling Ace's spirit. His brother Ace had the Flame fruit and died in Luffy's arms. The emotional connection to Ace manifested as Luffy subconsciously creating fire through his awakening powers. The explanation for how Luffy generates fire has always been vague. Some fans theorize it's friction from his rubber body, moving at high speeds, combined with armament haki. Others suggest it's simply part of his awakened powers, allowing him to manifest what he imagines. The fact that Luffy believes he's channeling Ace's flames might be enough for his cartoon physics to make it real. But what if those fire attacks were just the beginning? What if Luffy's affinity for flame goes deeper than just honoring his brother? The sun god, Nika, and flames are naturally connected. The sun is a ball of nuclear fire. Nika brought warmth and light to people trapped in darkness. Fire represents passion, life, energy, transformation. All of these align with Luffy's character and his role as Joy Boy's successor. A Gear 6 transformation centered around Eternal Flame would take these fire elements from occasional attacks to a core aspect of Luffy's power. Instead of just his fist igniting, his entire body could become wreathed in golden or white flames. Instead of fire being a byproduct of friction, it would be fundamental to the transformation itself. Luffy would become a living torch, the Lightbringer incarnate. Visual design and color theory. Fan theories suggest Gear 6's color scheme would be red and gold, the colors of flame and dawn. Gear 5 is predominantly white, with some red accents. A fiery Gear 6 would reverse this. Predominantly golden flames with red and orange highlights, maybe some white at the hottest points. The visual would be striking and distinct from Gear 5's cartoon aesthetic. There's also speculation that consuming the Mother Flame would give Luffy an afro. This sounds random, but it's actually a callback to one of the series' best moments. During the Davy Back fight arc on Long Ring Long Land, Luffy briefly had an afro, and it made him significantly stronger in his boxing match against Foxy. The afro became a running gag representing increased power. An afro made of flames would be both hilarious and epic, perfectly fitting One Piece's tone. The transformation would likely maintain Gear 5's freedom and fluidity, while adding intense heat and radiance. Luffy would literally glow, illuminating battlefields with his presence. His attacks would trail fire. His laughter would sound like crackling flames. He'd become a beacon of hope visible from miles away. A signal to allies that liberation is coming and to enemies that their reign of darkness is ending. Thematic resonance. The eternal flame theory works because it aligns perfectly with One Piece's core themes. The series is about freedom, about breaking chains and overthrowing oppressors. Light defeating darkness is the most fundamental story humanity tells. The sun rising after the night, spring following winter, life conquering death. Luffy, as the Lightbringer, embodies these eternal truths. Imu and the world government represent darkness. They literally live in the shadows, hiding the true history, keeping the world ignorant. They extinguished the light of the Void Century and plunged the world into 800 years of oppression. The celestial dragons live above the world in the literal sense, but cast metaphorical shadows over everyone below them. They fear the dawn because dawn means the end of their reign. Luffy bringing eternal flame to fight this darkness makes poetic sense. Fire can't be extinguished by shadows. Light always defeats darkness simply by existing. You can't fight light with darkness. Once the sun rises, night is over. A Gear 6 transformation based on eternal flame would symbolize that Imu's time is finished. That no matter how powerful the world government is, they cannot stop the dawn. Power scaling and necessity. From a practical standpoint, Luffy needs something beyond Gear 5 to defeat Imu and potentially Blackbeard. Gear 5 was strong enough to overcome Kaido, but even that victory required multiple attempts, and Luffy running out of stamina repeatedly. The 5 elders all have awakened mythical Zoan forms and apparent immortality. Imu's power is completely unknown, but likely exceeds even the elders. Blackbeard continues accumulating devil fruits and growing stronger. He has the darkness fruit that can nullify other devil fruits, and the earthquake fruit that can destroy the world. He might acquire more powers before facing Luffy. The final villains of One Piece are scaled to be threats that require Luffy to push beyond his current limits. Gear 6, centered around eternal flame, could provide the necessary power increase. Fire is associated with purification, with burning away impurities, with destroying the old to make way for the new. If the Mother Flame truly is an undying source of energy, channeling it could eliminate Gear 5's biggest weakness, Diche, stamina drain. Luffy could maintain his awakened form indefinitely, fighting at peak power without worrying about exhaustion. The heat itself could be a weapon. Flames that never extinguish, that burn hot enough to overcome even Logia intangibility, or the 5 elders' regeneration. Fire that represents the unstoppable force of freedom and liberation. Once lit, eternal flame cannot be snuffed out, just as the will of D cannot be suppressed, no matter how hard the world government tries. Narrative setup in Egghead. The Egghead arc introduced the Mother Flame and emphasized its importance. Vegapunk dedicated his life to creating it. The world government stole it and used it to destroy an entire kingdom. The power plant still exists on Egghead, protected but vulnerable. Oda doesn't introduce plot elements without payoff. The Mother Flame will matter to the story's conclusion. Several paths could lead to Luffy obtaining the Mother Flame. Perhaps Vegapunk's satellites protect it and offer it to Luffy as the one person who can use it properly. Perhaps Luffy accidentally absorbs it while fighting on Egghead. Perhaps he intentionally consumes it when facing an enemy too powerful for Gear 5 alone. The setup exists for Luffy to come into contact with this eternal flame. There's also symbolism in Vegapunk's dream being fulfilled through Luffy. Vegapunk wanted to give humanity unlimited energy and progress. The world government corrupted his invention into a weapon. Luffy, using the Mother Flame to bring liberation to the world, would redeem Vegapunk's dream. Science and willpower combining to create something greater than either alone. The light Vegapunk tried to give humanity being carried by the sun god himself. Counter-arguments and alternatives. Not everyone accepts the eternal flame theory. The main criticism is that Luffy himself stated Gear 5 is his peak. During the Wano arc, he explicitly said this is his final form in terms of Devil Fruit awakening. Creating a Gear 6 would contradict his own words, unless Oda provides a clear explanation for how this new form differs from a traditional gear. Some fans argue Luffy's future growth should focus on Haki mastery rather than new Devil Fruit transformations. He's already awakened his fruit, BOT. What more can be done with it? Strengthening his Conqueror's Haki, improving his Observation Haki to see further into the future, pushing his Armament Haki to new levels. These paths exist for Luffy to grow stronger without needing Gear 6. Others suggest Gear 5 might have subforms like Gear 4 did. Gear 4 had Boundman, Tankman, and Snakeman, different configurations, emphasizing speed, defense, or balanced combat. Gear 5 could develop similar variants without calling them Gear 6, a flame-based variant of Gear 5 that emphasizes heat and radiance without being a completely new transformation. There's also debate about whether consuming the Mother Flame makes sense for Luffy's character. He's not a scientist. He doesn't think strategically about power-ups. He eats when he's hungry and fights when he's challenged. Would he deliberately seek out the Mother Flame to power up? Or would it happen accidentally through Oda's trademark chaos and comedy? The Eternal Flame theory represents one possible path for Luffy's ultimate evolution. It connects established lore about the Mother Flame with deep mythological symbolism about light defeating darkness. It provides a thematic and visual endpoint for Luffy's journey from a rubber boy to the Lightbringer who ends 800 years of oppression. Whether Oda actually implements this specific theory remains to be seen. The final saga has barely started. Years of story remain before Luffy reaches Laugh Tale and confronts the world government. Plenty of opportunities exist for Oda to surprise fans with developments nobody predicted. He's built a career on subverting expectations while staying true to themes established from Chapter 1. But the symbolism is undeniably present. Dawn imagery saturates One Piece. Luffy's role as a bringer of light and freedom is explicit. The Mother Flame exists as Chekhov's gun waiting to be fired. The concept of eternal flame, of undying light that cannot be extinguished, mirrors the will of D that persists across generations. All the pieces are there for Luffy to become the Lightbringer in literal form, wielding eternal flame against the darkness that has ruled for centuries. Fans will continue speculating until Oda reveals his plans. These theories keep the community engaged and excited between chapters. They demonstrate how deeply readers connect with One Piece's themes, and how much thought goes into analyzing every detail Oda includes. Whether Gear 6 manifests as eternal flame, or Luffy finds strength through entirely different means, one truth remains constant. He will bring the dawn, and no darkness can withstand the morning star. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have the three forms, Mystery, Base, Hybrid, and Full Nika, explained. The three forms Mystery. Luffy's devil fruit broke every rule fans thought they understood. For over 20 years, everyone believed he ate the Gomu Gomu no Mi, a paramecia-type fruit that turned his body into rubber. Simple, straightforward, but the Wano arc shattered that understanding when the five elders revealed the truth. Luffy actually possesses the Hito Hito. That revelation opened a massive can of worms because Zoan fruits operate completely differently from paramecia fruits. And the biggest question hanging over the fandom is this: if Luffy has a Zoan fruit, where are his three forms? How Zoan fruits work? Every Zoan devil fruit user gets access to 3 distinct transformations. This is fundamental to how Zoan fruits function. The first is the base form, the user's natural state before any transformation. The second is the hybrid form, also called human-beast form, which combines characteristics of both the user's original body and the animal they can transform into. The third is the full beast form, where the user becomes completely the animal. Take Kaido as an example. His base form is a massive human with horns. His hybrid form gives him a dragon's scales, tail, and enhanced features, while maintaining a humanoid shape. His full beast form transforms him into a gigantic azure dragon that flies through the sky, creating flame clouds. 3 clear, distinct transformations that serve different purposes in combat. Rob Lucci provides another textbook example. Base form is a normal-sized human. Hybrid form bulks him up significantly, giving him leopard spots, claws, fangs, and enhanced muscle mass, while keeping a human body structure. Full beast form turns him into a complete leopard, though he rarely uses it because the hybrid form is considered the strongest for most Zoan users. The hybrid combines the animal's physical advantages with the human's ability to use learned combat techniques. This 3-form structure appears consistent across all Zoan types: regular Zoans like Lucci's leopard fruit, ancient Zoans like the dinosaur fruits from Kaido's crew, and mythical Zoans like Marco's phoenix fruit or Sengoku's Buddha fruit, DCT. They all follow this pattern: base, hybrid, beast. 3 forms, always 3 forms, except apparently for Luffy, which makes absolutely no sense unless there's something fans are missing. The problem with Luffy's forms: when Oda revealed that Luffy has a Zoan fruit, fans immediately started analyzing which of his forms correspond to the standard 3 transformations. And this is where things get confusing, because Luffy's situation doesn't map cleanly onto the Zoan pattern everyone knows. The most obvious interpretation is that base Luffy, the rubber boy we've watched for over 1,000 chapters, is his hybrid form. He's a human with the properties of rubber, which comes from the Nika fruit. His body has been permanently altered since eating the fruit as a child. He can stretch, bounce, and deform his body in ways no normal human can. This rubber physiology resembles how other Zoan users retain some characteristics from their fruit, even in human form. Marco can produce phoenix flames in his base form. Luffy has rubber properties in his base form. If regular Luffy is the hybrid form, then Gear 5 would logically be the full transformation. When Luffy awakens and enters Gear 5, his appearance changes dramatically. His hair turns white and rises like flames. His clothes become white. He gains the flowing white clouds around his shoulders. His eyes glow red with ring-like pupils. His personality shifts slightly, becoming even more carefree and playful. This definitely feels like a full transformation into something other than human. But here's the problem with that interpretation. If base Luffy is hybrid and Gear 5 is full beast, What's his actual base form? What does Luffy look like without any Zoan transformation active? Other Zoan users can completely deactivate their powers and return to their natural pre-fruit state. Luffy has never been shown without rubber properties since eating the fruit. His body is always stretchy. He's never had a form where he's just a regular non-rubber human. The alternative theory. Some fans propose the opposite interpretation. Base Luffy is actually his base form, not a transformation at all. The Nika fruit simply grants rubber properties passively, similar to how paramecia fruits work. In this interpretation, Luffy hasn't actually used any Zoan transformations until Gear 5. His Gears 2, 3, and 4 are techniques he developed to enhance his rubber body, not Zoan forms. Under this theory, Gear 5 is his hybrid form, not his full beast form. Luffy in Gear 5 maintains a mostly human appearance. He still has 2 arms, 2 legs, a recognizable human face. He's just gained divine characteristics of the sun god Nika. This would make Gear 5 comparable to other mythical Zoan hybrids. Sengoku's Buddha form is still humanoid, just gigantic and golden. Marco's hybrid form gives him phoenix wings and flames but keeps his human structure. If Gear 5 is the hybrid, then Luffy should have a full beast form he hasn't revealed yet. A complete transformation into Nika himself, whatever that actually looks like. Nobody knows what the sun god Nika truly is. Is he humanoid, like the silhouette shown during Gear 5's reveal? Is he something more alien and divine? Would a full Nika transformation make Luffy unrecognizable, turning him into a being of pure liberation and joy that barely resembles the boy who left Fuchsia Village? The human-human fruit complication. Here's what makes this even more confusing. Luffy's fruit model. It's in the same series as Chopper's human-human fruit and Sengoku's human-human fruit model, Daibutsu. These fruits let non-humans become human, or let humans become specific types of divine divided by mythical humans. How do they work differently than animal Zoans? Chopper is a reindeer who ate the human-human fruit. His base form is a reindeer. His hybrid form makes him look like a small humanoid reindeer, the cute form fans know as Brain Point. His full beast form would theoretically be a complete human, but Chopper never uses it. Instead, through Rumble Balls, he developed multiple hybrid variations that emphasize different aspects of his reindeer and human physiology. Sengoku is a human who ate the human-human fruit model, Daibutsu, Buddha. His base form is his normal human appearance. His transformation turns him into a giant golden Buddha. Does he have a separate hybrid form we haven't seen? Or does the Buddha form itself count as both hybrid and full transformation? Because he's already human, transforming into a mythical human. Luffy is a human who ate the human-human fruit model, Nika. Nika appears humanoid based on the silhouette and descriptions. Luffy, transforming into Nika, might not look dramatically different from transforming into a hybrid because both are human-shaped. This could explain why Gear 5 doesn't follow the visual pattern of other Zoan transformations. Luffy isn't becoming part animal and part human. He's becoming part ordinary human and part divine human. The distinction is more subtle. What Gear 5 actually represents. The manga explicitly states that Gear 5 is Luffy's awakening, not just a standard Zoan transformation. Devil Fruit Awakening is a completely separate concept from the three-form structure. Awakening represents mastering your fruit to unlock its deepest potential. For Zoan users, awakening typically enhances physical abilities and recovery, but comes with the risk of losing your mind to the animal's will, as seen with the Beast Guards in Impel Down. Luffy's awakening is unique because his mythical Zoan has properties of both Zoan and Paramecia fruits. He gets the Zoan transformation into Nika's form, but he also gets the Paramecia awakening ability to affect his environment, turning the ground and objects into rubber. Kaido explicitly comments on this during their fight, noting that Luffy's awakening has characteristics of both fruit types. So Gear 5 is definitely the awakened form of the Nika fruit. But does awakening replace the normal three-form system? Or does it add to it? Can Luffy potentially access an unawakened version of his full Nika transformation that looks different from Gear 5? Can he have a regular hybrid form that's less powerful than the awakened Gear 5 but more sustainable? The missing hybrid form theory. Many fans believe Luffy is still missing his proper hybrid form. Gear 5 might be his full beast transformation, accessed directly through awakening, skipping over the hybrid stage entirely. This would explain why Gear 5 changes Luffy's personality slightly. Full beast transformations often influence the user's behavior more than hybrid forms do. When Luffy enters Gear 5, he becomes more playful and carefree, almost childlike. That could be Nika's personality bleeding through. If Gear 5 is the full transformation, then logically, Luffy should be able to access a hybrid form that combines his normal human state with partial Nika characteristics. This hybrid might not turn his hair white or give him the flame-like appearance. It might just enhance his physical abilities and rubber powers without the full cartoon physics of Gear 5. It would be less draining, allowing Luffy to maintain it longer without the severe exhaustion that hits after Gear 5 ends. This hybrid form could be what Oda has planned for Luffy's continued growth. Gear 5 is incredibly powerful, but incredibly taxing. Luffy can only maintain it for minutes at a time before collapsing. Having a middle ground between base Luffy and Gear 5 would give him more options in combat. He could use the hybrid for extended fights where he needs enhanced power but can't afford to burn out quickly. The gear system might be the answer. Another interpretation suggests that Luffy's various gears actually represent his attempts to access Zoan transformation powers without knowing that's what he was doing. Gear 2 enhances his blood flow and physical abilities. Gear 3 inflates his bones to gigantic size. Gear 4 combines inflation with armament haki to create powerful hybrid forms like Boundman, Tankman, and Snakeman. These could all be partial, incomplete Zoan transformations that Luffy figured out through experimentation. Under this theory, Luffy has been instinctively tapping into his fruit's true nature for years without understanding it. His creativity and battle instinct led him to develop techniques that happen to align with Zoan transformation abilities. Gear 4 especially looks like a Zoan hybrid, DDA. It significantly alters Luffy's body shape and gives him new capabilities. The way Hyogoro described Gear 4 Luffy as looking like a Wisdom King or deity supports the idea that Gear 4 was an early, crude version of accessing Nika's power. If the gears are protozoan forms, then Gear 5 represents Luffy finally achieving the proper awakened transformation he was unconsciously working toward all along. His fruit was guiding him, nudging him to develop techniques that would prepare him for the awakening. The progression from Gear 2's speed enhancement to Gear 3's size manipulation to Gear 4's hybrid-like forms to Gear 5's full awakening shows a natural evolution toward understanding and mastering the Nika fruit. Why this matters. The three forms mystery isn't just academic curiosity. If Luffy still has transformations he hasn't accessed, that means he has room to grow even beyond Gear 5. Oda might introduce a proper hybrid form in the final saga to give Luffy new options against opponents like Emu, Blackbeard, or the remaining 5 elders. A form that's more controlled than Gear 5, but stronger than his base, could be exactly what he needs. There's also the narrative significance. If Luffy is missing one of the fundamental abilities that every other Zoan user has, that suggests his fruit is either incomplete or so unique that normal Zoan rules don't apply. Either possibility opens interesting story directions. Maybe Luffy needs to discover his missing form to truly master the Nika fruit. Maybe the fruit doesn't have all 3 forms specifically because Nika represents freedom, and forcing the fruit into a standard structure would contradict that. Some fans speculate that Luffy might need training or guidance to unlock his missing forms. Scopper Gabon, appearing in Elbaf, could serve this purpose. As a member of Roger's crew who traveled the entire Grand Line, Gabon might understand devil fruits better than most people alive. He could teach Luffy about Zoan transformation theory and help him access forms he didn't know existed. The Oda factor. Eiichiro Oda has a history of subverting expectations while respecting established rules. He might handle Luffy's Zoan forms in a way nobody expects, but that makes perfect sense in hindsight. Maybe Luffy already showed us all 3 forms, but fans didn't recognize them because they don't look like traditional Zoan transformations. Maybe the 3-form rule genuinely doesn't apply to the Nika fruit because it's too unique. Maybe Oda plans to address this mystery explicitly in upcoming chapters. What we know for certain is that the question exists. Fans are asking about Luffy's 3 forms, and Oda hasn't provided clear answers yet. Given how important the Nika fruit is to the story's conclusion, these answers will almost certainly come. Whether through explicit explanation, through Luffy demonstrating new forms, or through other characters commenting on his fruit's unusual nature, Oda will address the 3 forms mystery. The most likely scenario is that Oda has been intentionally vague because revealing the truth too early would spoil future developments. Maybe Luffy will unlock his true hybrid form during the fight against Emu. Maybe his full beast form exists but is too powerful for him to control yet. Maybe the mystery itself is part of what makes the Nika fruit legendary. Even the user doesn't fully understand what they possess. Fan, speculation, and theories. The community remains divided on this question. Some argue that base Luffy is hybrid, Gear 5 is full beast, and there is no separate base form because the fruit permanently altered him. Others insist Gear 5 is hybrid, and a full transformation is coming. Still others believe the fruit is too unique for standard Zoan categorization to matter. Reddit threads and YouTube videos analyzing this topic generate thousands of comments arguing different positions. Everyone has their own interpretation based on how they understand Zoan mechanics and how they interpret Luffy's various forms. The lack of official clarification keeps the debate alive and keeps fans engaged with the material. This is exactly what makes One Piece special. Oda creates mysteries that have enough evidence to support multiple valid interpretations. Fans can argue their theories without being definitively wrong because the series hasn't provided enough information to settle the question. This ambiguity generates discussion, speculation, and continued investment in the story. The 3 forms mystery will eventually be solved, whether in the manga, in an SBS Q&A, or through Oda's notes after the series ends. Until then, fans can only speculate based on the evidence available. What seems certain is that Luffy's situation is unusual even by mythical Zoan standards. The Nika fruit breaks rules that other fruits follow. Whether Luffy is missing forms or has forms fans don't recognize as distinct transformations, his devil fruit remains one of One Piece's greatest mysteries. And in a series built on mystery and revelation, that's exactly where Oda wants it. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to missing hybrid form theory. Is Gear 4 actually Luffy's hybrid state? Missing hybrid form theory. What if Luffy has been using his hybrid form for years without anyone realizing it? The missing hybrid form theory proposes that Gear 4, with its various configurations like Bound Man, Snake Man, and Tank Man, actually represents Luffy's true Zoan hybrid transformation. This theory attempts to solve the mystery of Luffy's three forms by suggesting that fans have already seen the hybrid. They just didn't recognize it as one because it appeared before the Nika fruit's true nature was revealed. The Gear 4 anomaly. Gear 4 has always been different from Luffy's other gears. Gear 2 enhances his cardiovascular system by pumping blood faster through his rubber body. Gear 3 inflates his bones to create giant limbs. Both are creative applications of his rubber properties, but they don't fundamentally change his appearance beyond enlarging specific body parts. They're techniques, not transformations. Gear 4 is something else entirely. When Luffy activates Bound Man, his entire body structure changes. He inflates his muscles dramatically, growing from his normal height to nearly 4 meters tall. His proportions shift. His torso becomes barrel-shaped and bouncy. His limbs thicken with compressed air. His entire upper body and arms get coated in armament haki, creating distinctive black patterns. Steam constantly rises from his body. He can no longer stand on the ground normally, and instead bounces continuously. This isn't just Luffy using his rubber body creatively. This is a full-body transformation that makes him look and move completely differently. Hyogoro, the Yakuza boss from Wano, even compared Gear 4 Luffy to a Wisdom King deity. He specifically said, Luffy looked like a divine guardian spirit, not just a rubber man with inflated muscles. That description takes on new meaning. Knowing Luffy's fruit is actually a god-type Zoan. Multiple variants equal hybrid flexibility. Here's what really sells this theory. Gear 4 has multiple forms. Bound Man, Snake Man, and Tank Man all count as Gear 4, but emphasize different aspects of combat. Bound Man balances offense, defense, and mobility. Snake Man sacrifices defense for extreme speed and redirecting attacks. Tank Man maximizes defense at the cost of speed. Same base transformation. Different configurations. This perfectly mirrors how Chopper uses his rumble balls. Chopper's hybrid forms include Guard Point, Defensive, Horn Point, Arm Point, Power, and Jumping Point, Mobility. Each hybrid emphasizes different aspects of combining his reindeer and human characteristics. Luffy's Gear 4 variants do the exact same thing, emphasizing different combat aspects of combining his human body with Nika's divine properties. No other gear has variants like this. Luffy doesn't have multiple versions of Gear 2 or Gear 3. Those are single techniques with one application. But Gear 4 functions like a transformation system with multiple configurations, exactly like you'd expect from a Zoan hybrid form, where the user can emphasize different traits depending on the situation. The visual evidence. Look at how Luffy appears in Gear 4 compared to his base form in Gear 5. Base Luffy looks completely human, aside from his rubber properties. Gear 5 makes him look distinctly non-human, with white flaming hair, glowing eyes, white clothes, and those signature clouds around his shoulders. Gear 4 falls right in between, clearly not his normal human appearance, but not fully transformed into something else either. The haki patterns in Gear 4 create a distinctive look that resembles tribal markings or divine symbols. The way his body inflates and bounces constantly gives him an otherworldly presence. The steam rising from his body suggests intense internal energy being released. His face remains recognizable, but his proportions and movement patterns are totally alien to normal human or even normal rubberman movement. This in-between state, recognizably Luffy but fundamentally altered, is exactly what hybrid forms are supposed to be. Rob Lucci, in hybrid form, still looks like Lucci, but with leopard features. Marco, in hybrid form, still looks like Marco, but with phoenix wings and flames. Luffy, in Gear 4, still looks like Luffy, but with divine warrior characteristics that suggest something beyond human. The awakening changes everything. If Gear 4 is the hybrid form, then what's Gear 5? The answer is straightforward. Gear 5 is the awakened form, which is a separate category from the standard 3 Zoan transformations. Awakening represents mastering your devil fruit to unlock its absolute pinnacle power. It's not the same as full beast transformation, even though both represent accessing more of the fruit's potential. Think about other awakened Zoan users. The guards in Impel Down who lost their minds showed awakened forms that were massive, powerful, but bestial. They weren't in hybrid forms or beast forms in the traditional sense. They were in awakened forms that transcended the normal transformation structure. Lucci's awakening gives him a slimmer, faster build with black flame clouds, completely different from his normal hybrid or beast forms. Luffy's awakening manifests as Gear 5, granting him cartoon physics and the ability to rubberize his environment. This goes beyond what a normal full beast transformation would provide. Kaido specifically notes that Luffy's awakening has characteristics of both Zoan, awakening, the transformation aspect, and Paramecia, awakening, affecting the environment. The awakening doesn't follow normal Zoan rules because it's a higher level of power entirely. The timeline makes sense. Luffy developed Gear 4 during his 2-year training with Rayleigh on Rusukaina Island. He needed power to fight the giant beasts that lived there, creatures that were overwhelming him even with Gears 2 and 3. So he created something new. A transformation that combined his rubber body with advanced armament, haki, and muscle inflation. But here's the interesting part. Luffy created Gear 4 instinctively, through trial and error and necessity. He didn't have a manual explaining Zoan transformation theory. He just knew he needed more power and figured out how to access it. What if his devil fruit was guiding him? What if the Nika fruit's will was helping Luffy discover his hybrid form without him realizing that's what he was doing? Zoan fruits are explicitly stated to have wills of their own. The Nika fruit evaded the world government for 800 years, suggesting it has an exceptionally strong will. When Luffy needed to grow stronger, his fruit might have nudged him toward accessing the hybrid transformation. Even though Luffy thought he was just inventing a new technique, the fruit was teaching him how to use its Zoan nature without revealing what it actually was. Why 3 different hybrid configurations? The existence of Boundman, Snakeman, and Tankman as distinct forms of Gear 4 could represent Luffy's creativity and freedom, and distending the core aspects of the Nika fruit, manifesting in how he accesses his hybrid form. Most Zoan users have one hybrid form with one appearance and one set of characteristics. Luffy has a hybrid system with multiple configurations because his fruit is about fighting however he imagines, with complete freedom. Boundman might emphasize the warrior aspect of the sun god. So, balanced combat abilities for direct confrontation. Snakeman could emphasize Nika's trickster nature, using speed and misdirection to overwhelm opponents. Tankman represents the immovable defender, the protector who withstands any attack to keep others safe. All three reflect different facets of what a liberator and warrior of freedom needs to be. This flexibility in hybrid forms would make the Nika fruit unique even among mythical Zoans. Other users get one hybrid configuration. Luffy gets a hybrid system that adapts to any combat situation. This freedom to customize his transformation perfectly aligns with Nika, representing absolute liberation and joy in combat. The Haki requirement. Every form of Gear 4 requires extensive armament Haki usage. Luffy coats large portions of his body in hardened Haki, particularly his arms and torso. This Haki isn't just for defense or offense. It seems integral to maintaining the transformation itself. When Gear 4 runs out, Luffy can't use Haki for 10 minutes afterward. The transformation consumes his Haki reserves. This dependency on Haki could be because Gear 4, as a hybrid form, requires Luffy to bridge between his human self and his divine Nika powers. Haki represents willpower and spiritual energy. Transforming partially into a god might require channeling immense willpower through Haki to maintain the balance between human and divine. The Haki coating isn't just armor. It's the mechanism that lets Luffy hold the hybrid form stable. This would explain why Gear 5 doesn't have the same Haki limitation. Gear 5 is the full awakening, where Luffy completely embraces the Nika identity. He's not trying to balance between human and god anymore. He's fully transformed into the awakened state. The transition is complete, so it doesn't require the same Haki investment to maintain. It drains stamina instead, because the awakened form taxes his body directly. How this solves the three forms mystery. If this theory is correct, Luffy's three forms are base form, regular rubber body; hybrid form, Gear 4 with its variants; and awakened form, Gear 5. The traditional full beast form doesn't exist for the Nika fruit because Nika isn't a beast. Nika is a god. The awakening replaces what would normally be the beast transformation, because divine entities don't have beast forms in the traditional sense. This interpretation respects both Zoan mechanics and the unique nature of the Nika fruit. Luffy follows the general structure of having multiple transformation states, while breaking the rules in ways that make sense for his specific fruit. He's not missing a form. He just has his forms organized differently than typical Zoan users, because his fruit represents a deity rather than an animal. It also explains why Oda revealed the fruit's true nature when he did. Gear 5 appeared, and everyone assumed it was the hybrid form, but by revealing Luffy had been using Gear 4 for years before unlocking Awakening, Oda can retroactively show that the hybrid form was already in play. Fans just didn't recognize it as such because they thought Luffy had a paramecia fruit. Counter-arguments. Critics of this theory point out that Luffy explicitly describes creating Gear 4 through his own ingenuity and training. He doesn't talk about it like a natural transformation that his fruit grants. He talks about it like a technique he invented. If Gear 4 was a Zoan hybrid form, wouldn't it come more naturally? Wouldn't Luffy instinctively know how to access it rather than spending 2 years developing it? The counter-argument is that Luffy's Nika fruit might work differently because it emphasizes creativity and imagination. Where other Zoan users instinctively access their transformations, maybe the Nika fruit requires the user to creatively discover their hybrid form. This would fit the theme of freedom and fighting, however you imagine. The fruit gives you the potential, but you have to be creative enough to realize that potential yourself. There's also the question of why Luffy hasn't used Gear 4 since awakening Gear 5. If Gear 4 is his hybrid form, he should still be able to access it as a less draining alternative to full awakening. But Luffy hasn't activated Gear 4 even once in the Egghead arc, despite fighting powerful opponents like Lucci, Kizaru, and the Five Elders. This suggests Gear 5 has completely replaced Gear 4 inches, Luffy's arsenal. The response is that Gear 5 is simply better in every way. Once you've mastered driving a sports car, you don't go back to riding a bicycle. Gear 5 gives Luffy everything Gear 4 did, plus cartoon physics, environmental control, and no hockey cooldown afterward. The only reason to use Gear 4 would be if Gear 5's stamina drain proved too much. But Luffy can just eat food to restore energy for Gear 5. There's no practical reason to downgrade to Gear 4 anymore. What this means going forward: if Gear 4 is indeed Luffy's hybrid form, it might not matter much going forward because Luffy has effectively graduated past needing it. He's achieved awakening, the highest level of Devil Fruit mastery. Going back to the hybrid form would be like a college graduate returning to elementary school. The hybrid form served its purpose as a stepping stone to awakening. However, there could be situations where accessing Gear 4 becomes relevant again. If Luffy faces opponents or situations where he needs to conserve energy over extended periods, having a hybrid form that's more sustainable than Gear 5 would be valuable. If he fights multiple battles in rapid succession without time to rest and eat between them, being able to drop down to Gear 4 for some fights, while saving Gear 5 for the strongest opponents, would be tactically smart. There's also the possibility that understanding Gear 4 as his hybrid form could help Luffy improve Gear 5. If he recognizes the progression from base to hybrid to awakened, he might discover ways to control the awakening better, or access partial awakening states. Being able to dial Gear 5 up or down depending on the situation would eliminate the stamina issue entirely. The symbolic meaning, whether or not Gear 4 literally is Luffy's hybrid form, the theory highlights something important about Luffy's journey. He's been accessing aspects of his true power for years without knowing what he really had. Gear 4 appeared strong and innovative, but it was actually just a glimpse of his fruit's real potential. Everything Luffy accomplished with Gear 4 was him scratching the surface of the Nika fruit's capabilities. This mirrors Luffy's entire character arc. He's always been special, chosen by the Nika fruit, descended from legendary figures, destined for greatness. But he achieved everything through his own effort, creativity, and determination. Gear 4 represents that perfectly. Even if it's a natural Zoan transformation, Luffy discovered it himself through training and imagination rather than having it handed to him. The missing hybrid form theory, whether fully accurate or not, enriches the understanding of how Luffy's powers work and how they fit into One Piece's established Devil Fruit mechanics. It suggests that Oda has been playing a long game, hiding the truth of Luffy's fruit while showing us pieces of it for years. And in a series built on mysteries and revelations, that kind of long-term planning is exactly what fans expect from One Piece. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have Base Form Paradox. Is normal Luffy already a hybrid? Base Form Paradox. Here's a question that keeps One Piece fans up at night. What is Luffy's actual base form? Most Zoan users can completely turn off their Devil Fruit powers and return to their natural pre-fruit state. But Luffy has been rubber since he was 7 years old. He's never been shown without stretchy properties. His body is permanently rubber, even when submerged in water or touching sea stone, which normally nullifies Devil Fruit powers. So, is normal Luffy actually his base form, or is he trapped in a permanent hybrid transformation without even knowing it? The permanent transformation problem. Every other Zoan user in One Piece can deactivate their fruit. Chopper can be a full reindeer. Marco can be a full human without phoenix flames. Kaido can be completely human without dragon features. They choose when to activate their transformations. But Luffy doesn't have that choice. From the moment he swallowed the Nika fruit as a child, his body became rubber permanently. He can't turn it off. This permanent alteration breaks the standard Zoan pattern. Zoan fruits give you the ability to transform between forms. The emphasis is on transformation, changing from one state to another. But Luffy doesn't transform into rubber. He is rubber. His baseline existence includes rubber properties that never deactivate. That's fundamentally different from how Zoans are supposed to work. The fruit's original fake classification as a paramecia made sense under this logic. Paramecia, fruits permanently alter your body. Buggy is always made of parts that can separate. Mr. One is always made of blades. Alvida's skin is always smooth. These alterations are constant passive effects. Luffy, being permanently rubber, fit perfectly into paramecia mechanics. But now that we know it's actually a Zoan, the permanent rubber body creates a logical paradox. The human fruit exception. The key might lie in the specific type of Zoan Luffy possesses. He ate the human fruit model, Nika. Chopper also has a human fruit, just the regular model without a special deity attached. How does Chopper's fruit work? Well, Chopper is a reindeer who gained human intelligence and the ability to transform into human-like forms. But Chopper's base form, his natural reindeer body, still exists. He can be a full reindeer when he wants. Luffy is a human who ate a fruit that lets him become a god human. But since he's already human, what's his untransformed state? If Chopper's base is reindeer, Luffy's base should theoretically be regular human without rubber. But we've never seen that version of Luffy. The fruit activated the instant he ate it and gave him rubber properties immediately. Those properties have never gone away, not even for a second. This suggests that humans who eat human fruits might work differently than animals who eat them. When a reindeer eats a human fruit, they can toggle between reindeer and human forms because they're fundamentally changing species. When a human eats a human fruit with a special model, maybe they're just immediately and permanently upgraded to that model of human. There's no toggling because you can't turn off being human when you're already human. The Nika rubber connection. The Nika fruit gives its user rubber properties as one of its fundamental characteristics. According to legend, the sun god Nika fought with a body made of rubber, bringing joy and liberation to people through that elastic fighting style. So rubber isn't just a power Nika had. It was a core part of what Nika was. The god's body composition was rubber. When Luffy ate the Nika fruit, he gained Nika's rubber body, not the ability to turn into rubber temporarily, the permanent state of having a rubber body like Nika possessed. This explains why the rubber properties are always active. It's not a transformation Luffy activates. It's his physical composition being altered to match Nika's. He became Nika, in the most basic biological sense, from the moment of consumption. This makes base Luffy already a transformed state. The 7-year-old boy who ate the fruit immediately changed from regular human to rubber human. That transformation happened instantly and permanently. So when fans look at normal Luffy and call it his base form, they're technically looking at Luffy in a partial Nika transformation that never turns off. His actual base form, non-rubber human Luffy, ceased to exist the moment he swallowed the fruit. What hybrid actually means. If we accept that normal Luffy is already transformed, then what is he transformed into? The most logical answer: a permanent hybrid state. Hybrid forms combine the user's original species with the fruit's species. Luffy, combining regular human with god human, creates a hybrid that looks mostly human but has the rubber properties that Nika possessed. This would mean Luffy has been walking around in hybrid form for the entire series without realizing it. Every adventure, every fight, every moment of the story shows Luffy in his human Nika hybrid state. It's not a dramatic transformation like other hybrids, because both states are humanoid. The change is internal, his body composition, rather than his external appearance. But it's still a hybrid form by definition. This interpretation solves several mysteries at once. It explains why Luffy is always rubber. It explains why he doesn't have a clear base form to return to. It explains why the fruit seemed like a paramecia for so long, because the hybrid transformation is so complete and permanent that it mimics how paramecia fruits work. Luffy isn't choosing to be rubber. He's stuck in a hybrid state that makes him rubber all the time. Gear 5 as true full transformation. Under this framework, Gear 5 makes perfect sense as Luffy's full transformation. He goes from permanent hybrid, normal rubber body, to full Nika, awakened god form. His appearance changes dramatically. White hair, red eyes, white clothes, the clouds around his neck. His personality shifts toward Nika's carefree nature. His powers expand to include cartoon physics and environmental manipulation. He becomes the sun god incarnate. The progression is clean. Luffy starts in forced hybrid, develops gears 2 to 4 as enhanced hybrid techniques, then finally achieves full transformation through awakening. He never had a true base form to begin with. He skipped straight from human to hybrid the moment he ate the fruit, spent years fighting in hybrid, and eventually transcended to full beast through Gear 5. This also explains why Luffy stated Gear 5 is his peak. He's not saying there's no Gear 6 or further forms. He's saying Gear 5 represents his fruit at its maximum, the complete transformation into Nika. You can't go beyond full transformation. There's nowhere higher to go in terms of accessing the fruit's power. Any future growth would come from mastering Gear 5 better, not from unlocking additional forms. The Zoan will theory. Zoan fruits having wills of their own becomes crucial here. The 5 elders explicitly state that all Zoan fruits contain the will of the animal or entity they're based on. The Nika fruit contains Nika's will, the will of a deity who represents liberation and freedom. That will has been actively evading the world government for 800 years, making sure the fruit never falls into their hands. When Luffy ate the fruit, Nika's will immediately took action. It transformed Luffy's body into rubber permanently, ensuring Luffy would start training with rubber powers from childhood. The fruit was preparing its new host for eventually manifesting Nika's full power. By making Luffy permanently rubber, the fruit guaranteed he'd spend years mastering the elastic abilities that form Nika's fighting foundation. The permanent hybrid state might be the fruit's will protecting itself. If Luffy could turn off his rubber powers, he'd be vulnerable. He'd also be less motivated to develop techniques using rubber. By forcing him into permanent hybrid, the fruit ensured Luffy would have no choice but to learn how to fight with rubber properties. This accelerated his training and prepared him for the awakening that would eventually reveal the fruit's true nature. Marco's Phoenix precedent. Marco offers an interesting comparison point. His Phoenix fruit lets him produce blue healing flames, even in human form. He doesn't need to transform to use that ability. The flames are a passive benefit of having the fruit. This suggests mythical Zoans can grant their users certain powers or traits, even without full transformation. Luffy's rubber body could work the same way. The Nika fruit grants rubber properties as a passive ability that doesn't require transformation to access. The difference is that for Marco, the flames are optional. He can choose not to use them. For Luffy, the rubber is his body's composition, so it can't be optional. He's always rubber because that's what his body is made of now. This doesn't solve the paradox, but it does provide precedent for mythical Zoans working differently than regular Zoans. Maybe permanent physical alterations are normal for human-type mythical Zoans specifically. Sengoku's Buddha form might have the same property. Perhaps he's permanently altered in some way even when not transformed. We just can't see it because both forms look human. The time travel comparison. Think about how Jewelry Bonnie's devil fruit works with Nika. Bonnie can use her age manipulation to imagine a future where she has Nika's powers. When she does this, she temporarily gains rubber properties and can use some of Nika's abilities. This proves that Nika's rubber body is a fundamental part of the fruit's power, not just something Luffy has. But here's the interesting part. When Bonnie mimics Nika, she's transforming from her normal body into a rubber body temporarily. She demonstrates what Luffy's fruit should theoretically allow. Luffy doesn't transform into rubber. But Luffy doesn't transform into rubber. He is rubber. His fruit works differently than Bonnie's imitation because Luffy actually ate the Nika fruit while Bonnie is just copying its effects. This suggests that actually consuming the Nika fruit creates a permanent change that mimicking the fruit cannot replicate. Bonnie toggles the rubber property on and off. Luffy can't toggle because the fruit fundamentally rewrote his biology. His baseline existence was altered in a way that even devil fruit powers can't fully nullify. Hence why he stays rubber even in water or while touching sea stone. The water and sea stone exception. This is the really weird part. When devil fruit users get submerged in water or touch sea stone, their powers get nullified. They can't activate their abilities. Zoan users revert to human form. Paramecia users can't activate their abilities. Logia users become solid. But Luffy stays rubber. His body doesn't stop being stretchy, even when his devil fruit powers are completely suppressed. This is the strongest evidence that Luffy's rubber body isn't a transformation he's consciously maintaining. It's a permanent alteration to his physical structure that exists independent of whether his devil fruit powers are active. The fruit changed his biology on a fundamental level when he first ate it. That change can't be undone even by the fruit's greatest weaknesses. Other Paramecia users experience similar effects. Cestine. Buggy still separates into parts in water. Alvida's skin stays smooth. Their body alterations are permanent. But Luffy's fruit isn't supposed to be Paramecia. It's Zoan. Zoans don't usually work this way. Yet Luffy's Zoan behaves like a Paramecia in how it permanently altered his body, while also being a Zoan in how it grants transformations like Gear 5. This hybrid behavior, acting like Paramecia for the permanent rubber, acting like Zoan for the transformations, might be intentional. The Nika fruit's nature as both warrior and liberator could manifest as a fruit that breaks the boundaries between devil fruit categories. It gives permanent physical changes like Paramecia, while also granting transformation abilities like Zoan. Chopper's training parallel. Look at what happened to Chopper. He's a reindeer with a human fruit. Initially, he needed rumble balls to access multiple transformation points beyond the standard 3. But after training for 2 years, Chopper mastered his fruit enough to access most of his forms without rumble balls. He internalized the transformations. They became natural extensions of his ability rather than drug-induced modifications. Could Luffy experience something similar in reverse? Right now, his rubber body is permanent and automatic. But what if, through extreme mastery of the Nika fruit, Luffy eventually learns to control whether he's rubber or not? What if the truly awakened state includes the ability to toggle rubber properties on and off, finally giving him a true base form? This would represent the ultimate mastery, not just accessing the fruit's transformations, but gaining control over its passive effects. Luffy, being able to turn off his rubber body, would prove he's surpassed what previous Nika users could do. It would show growth from being controlled by the fruit's permanent effects to having complete dominion over every aspect of the fruit's power. The narrative purpose. From a storytelling perspective, Luffy having been in permanent hybrid form all along creates beautiful, dramatic irony. Readers watched him for over 1,000 chapters thinking he had a paramecia fruit, when actually he was a Zoan user trapped in hybrid form the entire time. The reveal recontextualizes everything. Every stretchy punch, every gum-gum technique, every moment of using his powers, all of it was Luffy using his hybrid form without knowing that's what it was. This also makes Gear 5 feel more earned. Luffy wasn't just suddenly given a god fruit. He'd been training with a god fruit for years, mastering its hybrid capabilities before the fruit deemed him ready to access the full transformation. All his creative uses of rubber, all his gear developments, all his battles were preparation for eventually becoming Nika. The fruit was testing him, teaching him, and preparing him through the permanent hybrid state. The base form paradox, whether intentional by Oda or an accidental consequence of the Nika reveal, adds fascinating depth to Luffy's power system. It suggests that Luffy's journey has always been about gradually understanding and accessing more of a power he possessed from the start, not gaining new abilities, but revealing the true nature of abilities he already had. Fan theories and speculation. The community remains deeply divided on this issue. Some fans insist normal Luffy is his true base form, and the rubber properties are just how the fruit works, not a transformation. Others argue vigorously that permanent rubber equals permanent hybrid. Still, others propose that the fruit is so unique that normal Zoan classifications don't apply at all. Forums and social media explode with arguments about whether Luffy has been in hybrid form this whole time. People cite evidence from the manga, compare him to other Zoan users, and build elaborate theories about what his actual base form might look like if it exists. The lack of clear answers from Oda keeps speculation alive and passionate. This is Peak One Piece, a series that presents mysteries with enough evidence to support multiple interpretations, but not enough to definitively prove any single one. Oda loves keeping fans guessing, and the base form paradox is a perfect example of how he seeds questions that might not get answered for years, if ever. What this means for the future. Whether Luffy has a true base form or has been in permanent hybrid all along might not matter practically for the story going forward. He's reached awakening. He can access Gear 5. His progression from here is about mastering that awakened form and perhaps developing new techniques within it. The question of what his real base form is becomes academic, but it matters philosophically and thematically. If Luffy has been in forced hybrid since childhood, it means he's been partially transformed into a god without his knowledge or consent for most of his life. The fruit chose him and changed him before he could understand what that meant. His entire identity as a rubber man is actually his identity as a partial deity, whether he realizes it or not. This ties into broader themes about destiny versus freedom in One Piece. Luffy values freedom above everything, but his devil fruit trapped him in a permanent transformation and set him on a path toward becoming Joy Boy's successor. He's not as free as he thinks he is. The fruit has been guiding him all along. Yet he still exercises his free will within that framework, making choices that define who he is beyond just being Nika's chosen vessel. The base form paradox encapsulates this tension perfectly. Is Luffy truly free when his baseline existence is determined by a fruit with its own will? Or is the freedom he finds within that transformation, the creativity he shows with rubber powers, the way he fights on his own terms, proof that he transcends the fruit's influence? These questions don't have easy answers, which is exactly why they're worth asking. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to imagination limitation theory. Is Luffy's creativity his only boundary? Imagination limitation theory. Gear 5 supposedly lets Luffy do anything he can imagine. The five elders described his awakened power as being limited only by imagination. Oda confirmed that Luffy's conjured items come from a gateway to Nika's fantasy. Fans watched him grab lightning like it was solid rope, run through midair, leaving flame trails, turn Kaido into a jump rope, and create goggles and baseball bats from thin air. The power seems absolutely limitless, but is it really? The imagination limitation theory explores whether Luffy's creativity is truly his only boundary, or if there are hidden restrictions on what the most ridiculous power in the world can actually accomplish. What the elders said. When the five elders discussed Luffy's fruit during the Wano arc, they made a specific statement about its capabilities. They said the user's body gains rubber properties and they're only limited by their imagination. That phrasing is important. Only limited by imagination suggests imagination is the sole constraint. No other restrictions mentioned. No energy costs listed as a separate limitation. No physical laws that still apply. Just imagination. This description makes Gear 5 sound like reality warping at the highest level. Anything Luffy can conceive becomes possible. Want to grab lightning? Imagine you can, and it becomes solid. Want to run through air? Imagine foothold and they appear. Want to turn someone's body into rubber? Imagine it affecting them, and it does. The power bends reality to match whatever Luffy thinks should happen. But the elders aren't exactly trustworthy narrators. They've spent 800 years suppressing information about this fruit. They renamed it, reclassified it, and hunted anyone who got close to its truth. Would they accurately describe the fruit's limitations, or would they exaggerate its power because they're terrified of what it represents? Their fear might make them overestimate what the fruit can do, attributing godlike reality manipulation to something that's actually more restricted. Oda's clarification. In an SBS question, a fan asked how Luffy pulls items like goggles or baseball helmets from his cloud scarf. Oda's answer was brief. It's a gateway to Nika's fantasy. This raised more questions than it answered. What does Nika's fantasy mean? Is it a pocket dimension where imagined objects exist? Is it a collective unconscious of what Nika could imagine? Is it just Oda's way of saying, don't think too hard about cartoon logic? The phrase gateway implies Luffy isn't creating objects from nothing. He's accessing them from somewhere else, from Nika's fantasy realm or concept space. This distinction matters because pure creation from nothing would be true reality warping. Accessing pre-existing objects from an imaginary space is still incredible, but fundamentally different. It suggests the objects Luffy pulls out are limited to things that exist in Nika's fantasy, which might have its own rules and limitations. But then how did Luffy create goggles specifically shaped to fit his eyes? How did he conjure a baseball helmet in his exact size? Either Nika's fantasy contains infinite variations of every object, or Luffy can customize what he pulls from it. Both options seem overpowered, but the second implies more user control, suggesting imagination actively shapes what comes through the gateway, rather than just selecting from pre-made options. Observed. Despite the only imagination claim, Gear 5 has shown clear boundaries in practice. The most obvious is stamina drain. Maintaining Gear 5 exhausts Luffy rapidly. After using it against Kaido, he visibly aged from the strain. His body couldn't sustain the transformation indefinitely, even though his imagination presumably wanted to keep fighting. This proves physical limitations exist independent of imagination. Luffy also can't simply imagine his opponents defeated. He can turn Kaido into rubber and use him like a jump rope, but he can't imagine Kaido into non-existence or turn him into a harmless butterfly. He can't imagine away the Five Elders' regeneration or Kizaru's speed. The fruit lets him affect others in specific ways, rubberizing them, manipulating their bodies physically. But it doesn't grant omnipotent control over other beings. There's also a consistency to what Gear 5 can do. Luffy's abilities revolve around rubber properties, cartoon physics, and freedom of movement. He stretches impossibly far, bounces off surfaces that shouldn't support him, survives attacks by deforming comically, and manipulates his environment into rubbery substance. But he doesn't suddenly gain fire manipulation, time control, or dimensional travel. His imagination works within a theme, even if that theme is extremely flexible. The confidence factor. One detail that often gets overlooked. Luffy needs to believe what he's imagining will work. According to some interpretations, Gear 5 requires total confidence in what you're attempting. If you doubt whether something is possible, it won't manifest. This adds a psychological limitation on top of the imagination limitation. You can imagine something all day, but if you don't truly believe it'll happen, the power won't activate. This explains why Luffy's abilities lean heavily into things that feel natural to him. Running through air makes sense to someone who's been launching himself with Gomu Gomu no rocket for years. Turning enemies into rubber makes sense when your entire body is rubber. Grabbing lightning works because Luffy has grabbed plenty of other things that shouldn't be grabbable. His confidence comes from experience with bending rules, so his imagination naturally extends those bent rules further. Someone with a different personality using the Nika fruit might struggle with Gear 5. A logical, scientific mind might constantly doubt whether cartoon physics should work, creating mental barriers that prevent the power from activating. Luffy's strength with this fruit comes from his complete lack of self-doubt. When Luffy decides something is possible, he commits fully. That absolute confidence might be what actually unlocks imagination-based abilities. Not just imagination alone, cartoon physics rules. Gear 5 seems to operate on cartoon logic, but even cartoons have internal consistency. Classic animation follows certain rules. Characters can run off cliffs, but only fall after they look down. Objects can be pulled from hammer space. Physics apply whenever it's funnier if they do. Luffy's power follows similar patterns. He can do impossible things, but the impossibility needs a cartoon precedent. This suggests Gear 5 isn't imagine anything and it happens, but rather Imagine anything that fits cartoon physics, and it happens. The limitation is Luffy's understanding of how cartoon logic works. Fortunately for him, he's watched his grandfather's reactions, lived through absurd situations, and has an intuitive grasp of comedic timing. His entire life prepared him to think in ways that align with cartoon physics even before he awakened Gear 5. But what happens if Luffy imagines something that doesn't fit cartoon logic? What if he tries to imagine himself intangible like a Logia, or imagine time freezing for his opponents? These don't match the rubbery, bouncy, slapstick nature of his powers. Would the fruit reject those ideas? Would they simply not manifest? Or would they work but drain even more stamina because they're fighting against the fruit's thematic core? Environmental requirements. Luffy can rubberize his surroundings, but he needs surroundings to rubberize. When fighting on solid ground, he can turn the ground into a trampoline. When fighting in the air, he has no environment to manipulate. This creates situations where Gear 5's environmental powers are useless. He can still affect his own body and anything he touches, but the large-scale reality, bending, requires something to bend. This came up against the 5 elders. When fighting Saturn on Egghead, Luffy could interact with the ground and structures around them. But in pure aerial combat against enemies who can fly, his environmental manipulation would be severely limited. He'd retain his enhanced body and cartoon abilities, but lose one of Gear 5's most spectacular aspects, turning the battlefield itself into rubber. Water presents another environmental challenge. Luffy still can't swim and loses strength when submerged. Gear 5 doesn't grant immunity to devil fruit weaknesses. He can't just imagine that water doesn't affect him anymore. This proves devil fruit mechanics impose restrictions that override user imagination. The fundamental curse of devil fruits, 2000D, the sea's rejection, remains absolute, regardless of awakening or imagination. The Haki factor. During his fight with Kaido, Luffy used Gear 5 infused with both armament and Conqueror's Haki. This combination made his attacks devastatingly powerful. But the question arises, does Gear 5 need Haki to affect strong opponents? Can imagination alone overcome powerful Haki users? Or does Luffy still need conventional power to back up his reality-bending abilities? Evidence suggests Haki matters immensely. When Luffy turned Kaido into rubber, it worked partly because his Conqueror's Haki was comparable to Kaido's. Against the 5 elders, who have monstrous Haki reserves, Luffy's ability to affect them was limited, despite his imagination being just as wild. He could interact with their bodies physically, but couldn't fundamentally alter or defeat them through imagination alone. This indicates that imagination is bounded by power levels. A weak person with the Nika fruit couldn't imagine a Yonko out of existence because their willpower and Haki couldn't overcome the Yonko's spiritual strength. Imagination needs to be backed by sufficient power, Haki, physical strength, or both, to affect powerful opponents. The fruit amplifies what you can do, but doesn't let you bypass power scaling entirely. Time restrictions. Gear 5 has a time limit imposed by stamina drain. Luffy can't stay in the form indefinitely. This creates an interesting paradox. If imagination is the only limit, why can't Luffy imagine he has infinite stamina? Why can't he imagine the transformation doesn't drain him? The fact that he can't suggests physiological limits override imagination. His heart beating to the drums of liberation rhythm sustains Gear 5. When his body can't maintain that rhythm anymore, the transformation ends whether Luffy wants it to or not. He tried to keep fighting during his battle with Kaido, but his body forced him out of Gear 5 multiple times. Imagination alone couldn't extend the duration. He had to eat food to restore energy. Then, reactivate the form. This time restriction might be a hidden blessing. If Luffy could stay in Gear 5 permanently, he'd face the risk that all Zoan Awakeners deal with, the animal nature consuming the user's mind. The Nika personality already influences Luffy's behavior in Gear 5, making him more carefree and playful. Extended exposure might strengthen that influence until Luffy loses himself to Nika's consciousness. The stamina limit might be his body's defense mechanism. Complexity. Ceiling. Gear 5's feats vary in complexity. Running through air is simple. Imagine footholds exist and run. Turning Kaido into a jump rope is moderately complex. Imagine his body can be used that way and manipulate it. But what about truly complex operations? Can Luffy imagine intricate machinery into existence? Can he imagine computer programs? Can he imagine cures for diseases? There seems to be a sweet spot where Gear 5 operates best. Physical manipulation, environmental changes, simple object creation. See, these work consistently, but highly technical or abstract concepts haven't been tested. This could be because Luffy doesn't think that way. His imagination naturally drifts toward physical, visceral actions. Someone else with Nika's fruit might access different capabilities based on how their imagination works. This suggests imagination, as a limitation means both creativity and comprehension matter. You need to imagine something and understand it well enough to manifest it. Luffy can create baseball bats because he understands what a baseball bat is and does. Could he create a functioning firearm if he'd never seen one? Could he create medicine if he didn't understand biology? The power might require knowledge backing the imagination. Belief systems and culture. Luffy's imagination is shaped by his experiences and culture. He grew up in the East Blue, trained with pirates, and has spent years adventuring. His imagination naturally draws from things he's encountered. This could theoretically limit what he can imagine compared to someone with different life experiences. Someone who grew up studying ancient weapons might imagine those into existence more easily. Someone versed in science might imagine complex chemical reactions. Someone immersed in mythology might imagine divine interventions. Luffy's strength is his boundless confidence and simple but effective combat imagination. His weakness might be that he doesn't imagine sophisticated solutions because that's not how his mind works. This cultural and experiential limitation means only limited by imagination actually translates to limited by your life experience's impact on imagination. Luffy will never imagine something he has no context for understanding. His imagination, while vast in combat creativity, is bounded by the world he knows. He can extrapolate and exaggerate, but he can't imagine completely alien concepts. Narrative necessity. From a storytelling perspective, Gear 5 needs limitations, or the story loses all tension. If Luffy could truly do anything he imagines, every fight would end instantly. He'd imagine his opponents defeated, and they would be. Oda has to maintain boundaries on the power to keep conflicts interesting. The stamina drain, hockey requirements, cartoon physics framework, and confidence factors all serve this purpose. They give Gear 5 incredible versatility while preventing it from being an I win button. Luffy still needs strategy, still gets pushed to his limits, still struggles against powerful foes. The imagination-based powers give him more options, but don't guarantee victory. This suggests the only limited by imagination description might be in-universe hyperbole rather than literal truth. Characters in One Piece often exaggerate devil fruit capabilities when first encountering them. The 5 elders, terrified of Nika's return after 800 years, might overstate the fruit's power. The actual mechanics are incredible, but have more structure than pure, limitless imagination implies. Future evolution. As Luffy grows more experienced with Gear 5, his imagination might expand. He'll conceive of new applications he hasn't considered yet. His understanding of cartoon physics will deepen. His confidence in what he can accomplish will increase. This means Gear 5's practical limits will grow over time, even if theoretical limits remain constant. We might see Luffy eventually maintain Gear 5 longer as his stamina improves. He might learn to affect stronger opponents as his haki develops. He might discover new categories of abilities as his imagination gets more creative. The fruit's potential is vast, and Luffy has only scratched the surface despite using it in several major battles. But will he ever reach true anything is possible levels? Probably not. One Piece operates on certain fundamental rules. Devil Fruit users can't swim. Haki can overcome Devil Fruit abilities. Strong willpower can resist manipulation. These core mechanics create a framework that even the most ridiculous power must operate within. Gear 5 bends the rules impressively, but it doesn't rewrite the game entirely. The philosophical question. The deepest aspect of the imagination limitation theory asks, what does it mean for a power to be limited only by imagination? Human imagination is simultaneously boundless and constrained. We can imagine anything, but what we imagine is shaped by everything we know, experience, and believe. Saying Luffy is only limited by imagination is saying he's limited by his entire being, his personality, his experiences, his confidence, his understanding of the world. In that sense, imagination is a perfect limitation for a fruit themed around freedom. It gives the user complete freedom to fight however they want, to be as creative as they can, to push boundaries as far as their mind can conceive. But it also acknowledges that freedom without any structure becomes meaningless. Luffy's imagination, shaped by his journey, his values, and his goals, provides the structure that makes his freedom purposeful. The imagination limitation theory ultimately suggests that Gear 5's incredible power comes with invisible boundaries that are harder to see, but just as real as physical limitations. These boundaries are woven into how imagination itself functions, how consciousness interacts with Devil Fruit powers, and how narrative necessity shapes superhuman abilities. Luffy can do impossible things, but he can't do literally anything. The space between those two statements is where the real limits of Gear 5 exist. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have the Gomu Gomu retcon debate. Was this always planned or added later? The Gomu Gomu retcon debate. Was this always planned or added later? Few revelations in manga history have sparked as much passionate debate as the truth about Luffy's Devil Fruit. When Chapter 1044 dropped in March 2022 and revealed that the Gomu Gomu no Mi was actually the Hito Hito no Mi model, Nika, a mythical Zoan fruit disguised by the world government, the One Piece community erupted into argument. Was this an elegant twist Oda had planned from the beginning? Or was it a massive retcon slapped onto 25 years of story to justify giving Luffy cartoon physics? The answer isn't simple, but diving into this debate reveals fascinating truths about how long-form storytelling works, what constitutes good foreshadowing, and why fans get so invested in these questions in the first place. The case for retcon. Why skeptics aren't convinced. Let's start with the strongest arguments from the skeptical camp, because they deserve serious consideration. These aren't just bitter fans refusing to accept change. Many of them have legitimate concerns about the narrative structure. The late introduction problem. The name Nika doesn't appear until chapter 10-18 during the Wano arc. That's roughly 1,000 chapters and 24 years into the story, for something supposedly central to the protagonist's power. That's an incredibly late reveal. Compare this to other major story elements. Haki was hinted at in chapter 1 when Shanks scared off the Sea King. The poneglyphs appeared in Alabasta. Even Joy Boy got mentioned way back in Fishman Island. But Nika? The actual name and legend don't show up until Who's Who tells Jinbei about it while they're fighting in Onigashima. That's suspiciously close to when Luffy would need this power-up to defeat Kaido. The timing feels convenient rather than inevitable. Critics point out that if Nika was truly planned, we should have seen the name appear earlier. The Skypiea arc had sun worship. Fishman Island had sun symbolism with the Sun Pirates, but neither explicitly mentioned Nika. They mentioned generic sun gods, which exist in countless mythologies worldwide. Using sun symbolism retroactively as proof of foreshadowing feels like finding patterns in noise. The Zoan doesn't act like a Zoan. Here's where things get technically problematic. Zoan fruits have well-established rules in One Piece. They give you 3 forms: human, animal, and hybrid. They change your physical structure. They often give you instincts or personality traits from the animal. We've seen this consistently with Chopper, Lucci, Drake, and every other Zoan user. But Luffy's fruit? It functioned exactly like a paramecia for 1,043 chapters. His body was rubber all the time, not just in transformed states. He couldn't turn it on or off. He never showed animal instincts. He never lost consciousness to the fruit's will, which Zoan users sometimes experience. There was zero indication that his power was anything except your body is made of rubber. Then suddenly in chapter 1044, we're told this was actually a Zoan all along. The fruit has a will of its own. It chooses its users. It's been evading the world government for 800 years. These are massive new rules that contradict how we understood Luffy's power for the entire series. If Oda always intended this, why make it function identically to a paramecia? Why not drop any hints, even tiny ones, that Luffy's power had more going on? When Lucci talked about Zoan awakenings in Enies lobby, that would have been the perfect time to hint that Luffy had one too. But nothing. The government's bizarre inaction. This might be the most glaring plot hole for skeptics. If the world government has been desperately hunting the Nika fruit for 800 years, if they renamed it specifically to hide its identity, if they consider it an existential threat to their power, why did they do nothing when Luffy ate it? The 5 elders knew about Monkey D. Luffy by Alabasta. They had his bounty poster. They knew he was a D. They knew he had the Gomu Gomu no Mi. They knew he was causing chaos in their carefully controlled world. Yet they never sent admirals to kill him immediately. They never acted with the urgency you'd expect for someone with the most dangerous fruit in the world. It gets worse. CP9 encountered Luffy directly at Enies lobby. An entire buster call happened with multiple vice admirals present. All the while, Luffy was using his rubber powers in plain sight. If his fruit was truly the legendary Nika fruit in disguise, someone should have recognized it. Someone should have reported back. The government should have freaked out. Instead, they treated him like any other rookie pirate. Dangerous, but not existentially so. This doesn't match the behavior you'd expect if they'd been hunting this specific fruit for centuries. It feels like Oda hadn't decided the Gomu Gomu was special yet. The awakening. Inconsistency. When we first learn about paramecia awakening, the rule seems clear. You affect your surroundings with your power. Doflamingo turns buildings into strings. Katakuri turns the ground into mochi. It's a straightforward concept. Luffy's awakening should logically let him turn his surroundings into rubber. Maybe make buildings bouncy. Turn stone walls stretchy. That would follow the established pattern. Instead, Gear 5 gives him cartoon physics, reality warping, and the ability to manipulate his opponent's body. He makes Kaido's eyes pop out like a Looney Tune. He turns lightning into a jump rope. He grabs Kaido in dragon form and swings him around like he weighs nothing. These aren't rubber powers extended to surroundings. These are toon force powers that seem disconnected from everything we knew about rubber. Critics argue this looks like Oda wanted to give Luffy cartoon abilities for thematic reasons: freedom, joy, defying logic, and retconned the fruit's identity to justify it. If he'd always planned this, why make the sun god power manifest as rubber for 25 years? Why not give small hints that his abilities could bend reality? The foreshadowing feels vague. Supporters point to moments throughout the series as foreshadowing. Luffy liberates people. He defeats god figures. He brings laughter. Sun symbolism appears everywhere. His birthday is 5/5, which can be read as go-go, but is also just Children's Day in Japan. Chapter 569 is titled White Monster, like Nika's white form. But here's the problem. These elements are so general that they'd work for almost any shonen protagonist. Liberating the oppressed? That's every hero. Defeating false gods? Standard mythology stuff. Bringing laughter? Luffy's been goofy since day one. It would be weird if he didn't make people laugh. Sun imagery? One Piece has sun symbolism for dozens of things. Real foreshadowing should be specific and meaningful in hindsight. When we learned Sabo was alive, we could go back and see specific hints. When Rayleigh was revealed as Roger's first mate, previous mentions connected. But with Nika, fans are mostly finding general heroic traits and assigning them deeper meaning after the fact. The Skypiea arc is often cited as proof, but reread those chapters. They mention Sky people worshipping a god, which ended up being Enel, not Nika. There's no indication anyone worships a sun god named Nika specifically. It's only in retrospect, after the Nika reveal, that fans started calling this foreshadowing. The structural messiness. From a pure storytelling perspective, this reveal creates problems. Before Chapter 1044, One Piece had a relatively clean power system. Devil fruits give specific abilities. Haki lets you enhance those abilities and overcome other fruits. Simple, elegant, easy to understand. Now we have a fruit with a disguised name that the government covered up, but somehow nobody noticed. A Zoan that acts like a paramecia until awakening. A fruit with a will so strong it evades the government, but not so strong it stopped Shanks from casually carrying it in a chest. A power that's limited only by imagination, which isn't really a limit at all, and could theoretically let Luffy do anything. These complications make the power system messier. They introduce questions that may never get clean answers. Why does the fruit look like rubber before awakening? How does the government's cover-up actually work? If devil fruits are manifestations of human desires, how does that interact with the Nika fruit? Does the fruit have Joy Boy's consciousness in it? For critics, this complexity feels like Oda painted himself into a corner. He wanted Luffy to have cartoon physics for thematic reasons, but needed to justify it within his established system. The Nika reveal was his way out, but it required retconning fundamental things about how we understood Luffy's power. The case for planning. Evidence it was always intended. Now let's examine the other side. Because there's genuinely compelling evidence that Oda had this planned much earlier than skeptics believe. The foreshadowing might be subtle, but subtle doesn't mean absent. The 30-year-old smoking gun. In 2024, something remarkable happened. Oda's first editor revealed early prototype materials for One Piece from around 1994 MMO, when Oda was just 19 years old. The prototype was called Forward and featured a character named Monkey D. Pow. Luffy's prototype, with a bandana showing the Gomu Gomu swirl pattern. But here's what stunned the fandom. In the corner of the character sheet was a figure labeled Mary, the spirit of the rubber tree, aged 5,008 years old. This spirit was drawn laughing, wah ha ha ha, with a carefree, joyful expression. This is huge. 30 years before Nika was revealed, Oda had already conceived of a laughing rubber spirit with godlike age living within the rubber power. The name Mary itself means joyful and happy. The character embodies the exact same traits Nika would later represent. Freedom. This proves beyond doubt that Oda always intended Luffy's rubber power to have a spiritual component. He always wanted it connected to laughter and liberation. The specifics may have changed. Mary became Nika. The exact mythology evolved, but the core concept was there from the absolute beginning. You can argue about execution. You can debate whether the reveal was handled well, but you cannot honestly claim Oda made this up during Wano. The receipts exist from 1994. The Marineford Breadcrumbs, Chapter 569 of One Piece, is titled The White Monster. On the surface, this refers to Whitebeard showing monstrous strength, but look deeper and the foreshadowing becomes clear. This is the chapter where Luffy first uses Conqueror's Haki, shocking everyone, including the admirals. It's the chapter where he begins to show his true potential as something more than an ordinary pirate. And the title White Monster perfectly describes Gear 5, where Luffy transforms into an all-white form. But there's more. The chapter number itself is wordplay. In Japanese, Goro Awaze, number, puns Oda frequently uses. 569 can be read as 569 or Gomu no Ki, which means soul of rubber. Not just rubber, not rubber body, rubber soul. The implication that rubber has a soul or spirit. Oda loves these number puns. He uses them for character, birthdays, chapter titles, and important reveals. Finding one this specific, this early, in a chapter about Luffy's potential, 19. That's deliberate foreshadowing, not coincidence. This was March 2010, 12 years before the Nika reveal. Oda was planting seeds. The Skypiea arc's hidden meaning. Critics say Skypiea has generic sun god imagery. But let's look at what actually happens in that arc through a Nika lens. Luffy defeats Enel, who literally declares himself God and rules through fear and lightning. Luffy, whose power mysteriously counters Enel's lightning, which shouldn't happen. Rubber insulates, but doesn't negate electricity. Defeats this false god and rings the golden bell, announcing freedom to the sky and the world below. The Shandians are liberated. People dance. Joy returns to Skypiea after 400 years. The arc is literally about a liberator defeating a false god and bringing joy to the oppressed through impossible means. It's the Nika myth played out, beat for beat. The fact that they don't say Nika by name doesn't matter. The archetype is right there. Moreover, Moose of the Shandia tribe says she'll meet the sun god after her sacrifice 400 years prior. The giant snake Kashigami has God of the Sun as one of its titles. Sun god worship is explicitly part of Skypia's culture. This isn't vague symbolism. It's literal setup for Luffy being connected to sun god mythology, the liberation theme throughout. One Piece's entire story is about liberation. Luffy doesn't conquer, he liberates. He frees Nami from Arlong. He liberates Alabasta from Crocodile's control. He breaks Robin free from her past. He punches a celestial dragon to save a friend. He breaks thousands of prisoners out of Impel Down. He challenges the system that enslaves and oppresses. This isn't generic hero stuff. It's specifically about breaking chains, physical and metaphorical. The series returns to slavery and liberation again and again. Fisher Tiger's backstory, the Celestial Dragon's slaves, Hancock's past, Sabaodi's human auction, Tequila Wolf's bridge builders, Doflamingo's toy factory, Sugar enslaving people and erasing their memories. Why would Oda structure his entire narrative around liberation if he hadn't planned for Luffy to embody the warrior of liberation? The theme is so consistent, so central to One Piece's DNA, that Luffy being Nika feels inevitable in retrospect. The Zoan Awakening framework. When Impel Down introduced awakened Zoan users, we saw the jailer beasts. Former humans who'd transformed and lost their personalities to their devil fruits. At the time, this seemed like world building about failed awakenings, but Crocodile explicitly mentions these are awakened Zoans, making them the first awakened devil fruit users shown in the series. This was back in 2009, around chapter 544. Oda was introducing the concept of Zoan awakening 13 years before Luffy would awaken his. Why introduce awakened Zoans so early unless Luffy, our protagonist, would eventually awaken his fruit? And if Luffy has a paramecia, showing Zoan awakenings first seems odd, unless his fruit was always a Zoan. Later, in Dressrosa, Doflamingo talks about paramecia awakening. Then, in Wano, Kaido talks about Zoan awakening. Oda systematically explained each type of awakening through the story, building toward Luffy's. That's not something you do on a whim. That's structural planning. The Five Elders' consistent behavior. Skeptics say the government should have acted earlier if Luffy had the Nika fruit. But actually, their behavior makes perfect sense when you think about it. The Gorosei specifically say in chapter 1044 that the fruit has evaded them for 800 years. Not that they couldn't find it, that it actively evaded them. This is after establishing that Zoan fruits have wills of their own. The fruit doesn't want to be captured by the world government. It chooses users who embody freedom. So it makes perfect sense that even when the government knew about Gomu no Mi user Monkey D. Luffy, they didn't recognize it. The fruit was disguised. The name was changed. And nobody had awakened it in 800 years. So there was no reference for what it looked like at full power. The Gorosei only start to panic in Wano when Luffy begins showing signs of awakening. That's when they realize their worst fear is about to come true. That's when they order CP0 to stop Luffy at all costs. Their behavior isn't inconsistent. It's perfectly timed to the threat actually manifesting. Think about it. Every Gomu Gomu user immediately got recognized as having the Nika fruit. The cover wouldn't work. The fruit needs to function as rubber until awakening for the disguise to be effective. Which is exactly what happened with Luffy. Rubber as the perfect disguise. Here's something critics overlook. Making the Nika fruit appear as rubber is genius from a story perspective. Rubber seems useless. It's one of the least threatening devil fruit powers imaginable. You stretch and bounce. Cool. Meanwhile, Logia users control elements, and Zoan users become powerful beasts. A rubber paramecia is the perfect cover because nobody would suspect it's hiding godlike power. Who would look at a kid who bounces around and think, he must have the legendary sun god fruit? It's hiding in plain sight by being underwhelming, and thematically, it makes sense too. Rubber represents freedom, flexibility, bounciness, going with the flow. It's almost impossible to truly restrain rubber. These properties align perfectly with Nika's themes of liberation and joy. The disguise isn't arbitrary. It resonates with what Nika represents. Moreover, Luffy made rubber work through pure creativity and determination. He invented gears 2 and 3. He developed unique techniques. He maximized a weak fruit through willpower and imagination. Then, at awakening, that creativity explodes into reality-warping cartoon physics. There's a beautiful progression there that only works if it was always a Zoan fruit with more potential than anyone realized. Oda's track record of planning. Let's zoom out and look at Oda's history as a writer. This man revealed Sabo was alive nearly 600 chapters after we thought he died. He set up Kuma, separating the crew on Sabaody 6 years before it happened. His editor confirmed Oda told him this plan when Kuma was first introduced in 2002. Oda revealed in volume 818's SBS that he had decided Haki would be in the story before he even drew chapter 1. Shanks using Conqueror's Haki wasn't added later. Shanks, it was planned from the literal beginning. He wove the concept of warlords, Yonko, admirals, and the power balance into the early story, knowing exactly where it would lead. The poneglyphs, the Void Century, Joy Boy, the D-Clan. These massive mysteries were established early and are still paying off now. Oda plans story beats years, sometimes decades in advance. He drops tiny seeds that only sprout hundreds of chapters later. Given this track record, is it really hard to believe he planned the Nika reveal? For a writer who operates on this timeline, planting vague sun god mythology in Skypiea, 2002, and paying it off in Wano, 2022, is perfectly consistent with his style. 20 years of setup for one reveal is exactly the kind of thing Oda does. The thematic perfection. Set aside plot mechanics for a moment and look at themes. One Piece is about freedom. It's about choosing your own path despite the world telling you what you can and can't be. It's about inherited will and dreams that transcend death. It's about laughing in the face of oppression. Luffy embodies all of this. He's the freest character in the series. He doesn't care about destiny or prophecy. He just does what he wants. He makes friends by being himself. He challenges tyrants because they piss him off. His dream is to be the freest person alive, making him the sun god Nika, the warrior of liberation. Doesn't contradict this. It reinforces it. Nika isn't some chosen one destiny. Nika is what happens when someone who loves freedom gets the power to spread it. The fruit chose Luffy because of who he already was. not the other way around. This thematic synergy feels too perfect to be accidental. Oda clearly structured his protagonist around these ideas from early on. Whether he had the name Nika from the start is almost irrelevant. He had the concept, and the concept is what matters. The middle ground. What actually happened? After examining both sides, the truth probably lies between the extremes. Neither completely planned from Chapter 1, nor total retcon made up in Wano, captures what likely happened. The core was always there. The prototype materials prove Oda conceived of a laughing rubber spirit before One Piece officially began. He always intended Luffy's power to connect to joy, freedom, and liberation. The thematic through line was established from day one, but the specific execution, Nika. The name Nika, the exact mythology, the Zoan classification, probably evolved over time. Oda knew the destination, but figured out the best route as he went. This is normal for long-running series. Writers have endpoints in mind, but fill in details during the journey. Oda knew Luffy would get cartoon physics at Awakening. He knew it would connect to sun god mythology. He knew it would be revealed as something more than a simple rubber fruit. But he didn't write the Skypiea arc going, "This is foreshadowing for the Hito Hito no Mi model, Nika." He wrote it with looser concepts that he'd later crystallize. Foreshadowing versus retroactive continuity. There's a difference between foreshadowing and making earlier elements fit new revelations. Oda did both. Real foreshadowing. Chapter 5, 169's title. The Rubber Tree Spirit, Luffy, always bringing liberation and laughter. The consistent sun imagery around freedom. Retroactive connections. Saying Skypiea's generic sun worship was specifically about Nika, claiming every instance of Luffy liberating people was secretly Nika foreshadowing when these are just what protagonists do. Oda planted real seeds. But he also went back and made earlier content feel more connected than it originally was. That's not lying. That's skilled storytelling. He created resonance between past and present, making the reveal feel inevitable, even if all the pieces weren't there from the start. The execution issues were real. Even if Nika was planned, the reveal had problems. Introducing the name in Chapter 10:18 and making it crucial in Chapter 10:44 is too fast. Who dumps a lot of mythology on us quickly, then dies, and we're supposed to accept this is central to everything. It feels abrupt. If Oda had mentioned Nika by name earlier, even just having someone in Fishman Island reference the sun god by name, or having a giant in Big Mom's crew mention the old legends of Elbaf's sun deity, the reveal would have felt more natural. The groundwork was there thematically, but the specific terminology came late. Also, the explanation of why it's classified as a Zoan that acts like a paramecia is still confusing. Oda tries to justify it by saying the fruit is disguised, but mechanically it creates questions. Could more detail have helped? Probably. Is it a deal breaker? Not really, but it's not perfectly clean either. The retcon. That isn't quite a retcon. Here's a key insight. There's a difference between a retcon and a reveal. A retcon changes what was previously established. A reveal provides new information that recontextualizes what we knew. The Nika reveal is mostly the latter. Luffy's powers still work the same way they always did. Everything he could do before, he can still do. The new information doesn't contradict his abilities. It explains their origin differently than we thought. But there are retcon elements too. Saying the fruit is a Zoan does contradict how it functioned for 1,000 plus chapters. Saying it has a will of its own adds new rules. These are changes to established facts, not just recontextualizations. So the Nika reveal is a hybrid, mostly a reveal with minor retcon elements to smooth over inconsistencies. That's actually pretty common in long manga. Oda prioritized thematic impact over perfect mechanical consistency, which is the right call for most readers, even if it bothers continuity purists. Why this debate matters. On the surface, arguing about whether something was planned or retconned seems pointless. The story is what it is, but these debates actually reveal important things about how we engage with long-form narrative. The desire for authorial control. When fans argue Oda planned everything, they're expressing faith in authorial vision. They want to believe their favorite creator is a mastermind who thought of everything. It's reassuring to think One Piece's journey has been guided by a steady hand with a clear destination. When fans argue it's a retcon, they're often expressing betrayal. They invested time and emotion into understanding Luffy's power a certain way. Changing fundamental rules feels like the creator broke an implicit contract. It makes the story feel less stable, like anything could be changed on a whim. Both positions are about trust. Do we trust Oda knew what he was doing? Do we trust the story we've been following? The debate isn't really about Nika. It's about our relationship with the narrative itself. The value of organic development. Here's something fans don't want to hear. It's okay for stories to evolve. It's okay for creators to not have every detail planned. Some of fiction's best moments come from writers discovering their story as they write it, responding to what works and adjusting what doesn't. If Oda started with a vague concept of a laughing rubber spirit and slowly developed it into the detailed Nika mythology, that's not bad writing. That's organic development. That's a creator growing with their story, finding better ways to express the themes they always cared about. The alternative, a writer who meticulously plans every detail before starting, can produce excellent stories but also risks being inflexible. Stories need room to breathe, to surprise even their creators. The best long-running narratives blend planning with discovery. Oda probably had more planned than critics believe and less than die-hard defenders insist. And that's fine. That's how real writing works. Foreshadowing isn't always something important. Just because something connects to a later reveal doesn't mean it was foreshadowing. Sometimes, writers create thematic consistency without explicitly planning plot connections. Oda made Luffy liberate people in every arc because that's who Luffy is. He included sun symbolism because sun equals freedom, divided by hope in many cultures. He gave Luffy Conqueror's haki because Luffy has an indomitable will. These weren't necessarily clues about Nika. They were character-consistent writing. But when Oda later decided to make Luffy's fruit the sun god's power, all these elements naturally connected. They weren't originally foreshadowing, but they became thematically linked. That's different from, say, hiding Brook's yo-ho-ho laugh in Laboon's past, which was explicit foreshadowing. The Nika reveal works because it aligns with what was already there. Whether those elements were planned as hints or just happened to fit is almost irrelevant to the reader experience. It feels connected, so it works. So was the Gomu Gomu. Divided by Nika, reveal planned, or a retcon? The honest answer, both. It was a reveal built on a genuine foundation of early concepts, executed through evolved specifics that sometimes contradicted established mechanics. Oda planned the core, Luffy having a power connected to joy, freedom, and liberation. The rubber tree spirit from his 1994 prototype proves this wasn't made up in Wano. The thematic emphasis on liberation throughout the series shows he knew where Luffy's character was heading, but he probably didn't have all the details worked out. The name Nika might have come later. The specific Zoan classification might have been decided after he'd already established how paramecia awakenings work. The exact mythology of the sun god probably evolved as he researched and developed Wano's culture. And yes, there are some retcon elements. Making a fruit that functions like a paramecia actually be a Zoan requires some hand-waving. The government's approach to Luffy has mild plot holes, even with the fruit evades capture explanation. These are real issues that critics rightfully point out, but here's what matters more than whether every detail was planned. Does it work? Does the reveal enhance the story or diminish it? Does it feel earned and meaningful, or cheap and random? For most fans, despite the bumps, it works. Gear 5 captures the joy of early One Piece, when a rubber boy set out for adventure with a smile. The theme of liberation pays off decades of storytelling. The cartoon physics feel true to Luffy's character. NEA. Of course, this goofball who's always defied logic would have the power to bend reality through laughter. The foreshadowing might not be perfect. The mechanics might raise questions, but the emotional truth of the reveal resonates. And in long-form storytelling, emotional truth often matters more than perfect plot mechanics. Oda knew where he was going. He didn't have every step planned. He course-corrected when needed. He made earlier elements work harder than they originally might have, and he delivered a reveal that, while controversial, captures everything One Piece has always been about: freedom, joy, and the power to change the world by being yourself. That's not a retcon. That's not perfect planning either. It's something in between. The messy, imperfect, ultimately satisfying reality of how stories get told over decades. And honestly, that makes the journey more interesting than if Oda had simply had it all figured out from day one. The debate will probably never end. Fans will continue arguing about whether Skypiea was real foreshadowing, or if Chapter 569's title means anything. But maybe that's part of One Piece's magic. A story rich enough that we can't agree on what's planned and what emerged organically, because either interpretation is supportable. So embrace the ambiguity. Appreciate that Oda built something big enough to contain multiple readings, and enjoy the fact that even after 1,100 chapters, One Piece can still surprise us with revelations that make us re-examine everything we thought we knew. Because at the end of the day, whether Nika was planned from 1994 or 2018, the result is the same. Luffy ate a devil fruit that embodies freedom, brings joy to the oppressed, and allows him to fight the entire world with a smile on his face. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.